teeth, tasting like damp earth and chlorophyll, as if nature was actively trying to gag me for trespassing. I spat, coughed, wiped my tongue on my sleeve, and blinked sandpaper dry eyes open. I was in a forest. And not the I took a hike and got lost kind. This was old, deep, primeval. The trees weren't just big, they were monuments. Trunks so wide 3 people could hide behind one, and their twisted branches blotted out most of the sky. The air smelled like wet bark, crushed herbs, and something aggressively sweet I couldn't place. Birdsong was a dissonant chorus. Too many pitches at once. Great. Just what I needed. A forest soundtrack composed by eldritch bagpipes. I lay on the cold moss, waiting for my brain to do the sensible thing and explain how I'd ended up face down in a fairy tale nightmare. Spoiler alert, it did not. My name, at least, surfaced quickly. Ezra Haynes. Age 32, maybe 33. Somewhere in the knees make noise when standing up bracket. I remembered an apartment, a job I barely tolerated, a cat I missed more than most family members. The important details, clearly. I sat up slowly. Clothes intact, thankfully. Jeans, boots, jacket. No obvious wounds. Just some dirt and enough leaves in my hair to qualify as a very confused, temporary resident of this arboreal hellscape. Okay, I muttered. Let's assume I haven't been murdered and buried in a whimsical forest. Step 2. Figure out where I am and avoid contact with anything that sparkles, or speaks in all caps. The trees maintained their rude silence. I stood, brushed off pine needles, and turned. That's when I noticed the stone slab behind me. It was half sunk into the mossy ground, carved with interlocking symbols that spiraled like vines but felt utterly alien and mathematical. As I stepped closer, a terrifying internal shift occurred. It wasn't understanding, but pure recognition. Not from my memory, but deeper, a feeling that whispered, "You've seen this before." This sudden, inexplicable sense of familiarity, of belonging to a place I'd never been, was arguably more unsettling than the giant trees. I touched the stone. It thrummed, warm for an instant, then cold, then warm again, as if taking my temperature. The symbols flared faintly green, then faded. The slab went inert. I immediately regretted the physical contact. Great. Magic rocks. I'm already getting weird background checks from the local geology. A branch snapped, close. A huge, silent, hulking shape watched from the tree line. It was a wolf, but impossibly large, taller than my waist, silver eyes fixed on me. This wasn't a forest creature. It was a system error with teeth. "Hello, big guy," I offered, raising my hands. "I have a damp moss problem. Please don't solve it by making me lunch." The massive wolf didn't lunge. Instead, it stepped aside, revealing a smaller shape staggering into the clearing. A wolf pup, fur matted, collapsing with a low whine. The large wolf rushed to it, letting out a desperate guttural sound. The pup was dying, slick with black sap that smelled like rot and sickness. I saw the black veins, vines, not blood vessels, crawling beneath its skin. Every sensible neuron in my brain screamed for self-preservation, but the giant wolf's grieving eyes held me, asking. It trusted me more than I trusted my own life. I knelt, helpless. I can't fix this. I don't have bandages, herbs, magic, anything. The stone slab behind me answered the question, humming loudly. It split open, gently, like soil parted by a seed, and pushed a single crystalline shard out of the earth. Small, transparent green, humming with faint light. It pulsed, offering itself. I knew instinctively that the shard was the answer, but felt a cold dread about the price. My hands shook as I reached for it. The moment my fingers closed around the crystal, warmth flooded my arm. I pressed the shard to the pup's chest. Light flared. Heat and cold surged. The vines writhed and shriveled, burning away like thread. The pup inhaled sharply. It opened its eyes, silver, like the larger wolf's, and weakly nudged my hand. alive. I felt the surge of relief, followed by something far worse. A sudden spike of blinding pain hit my skull. A memory, a face, a voice, a moment blinked out, gone before I could grasp it. I gasped, clutching my head. The shard dimmed, its power spent. The stone slab spiraled open again, revealing a book beneath, bound in bark, grown, not made. Words carved themselves across the front, glowing faint green. The Warden's ledger. Something had fundamentally shifted within me. It wasn't just magic. It was an exchange rate. The forest hadn't just healed the pup. It had entered a contract, and in that exchange of life for life, the forest had made a claim on me. I stared at the ledger. The big wolf nudged my shoulder, urging me to move. I picked up the book. I followed the enormous, impossible wolf into the trees. Because some part of me, the part that was now irrevocably bound to this primal world, already knew. I hadn't been lost. I'd been found. And the terms of the contract were going to be absolutely awful. Chapter 2. The Kindness of Wolves. A warden does not command the wild. He asks and hopes the forest agrees. The Ledger, Fragment 2. We moved through the forest in a slow, profoundly weird procession. A colossal wolf with scars big enough to have their own biography, a newly healed pup stumbling with wobbly determination, and me, human, confused, and trying desperately not to trip over every exposed root. The enormous wolf, the one who had not eaten me, kept a steady pace just ahead. Every so often, he'd glance back, not out of affection, but like a quality control inspector making sure the two-legged moss-prone idiot was still upright. It was oddly comforting, in a horrifying, I'm being escorted by a prehistoric murder dog kind of way. The forest deepened as we walked. Sunlight disappeared entirely, absorbed by branches. Leaves the size of shields hung low, dripping dew that shimmered gold instead of clear water. Strange vines glowed faintly along the trunks, pulsing in slow heartbeats. This place wasn't just old. It felt sentient, watching every nervous step I took. I kept one hand on the ledger strapped to my side with a piece of torn belt. The bark cover felt disconcertingly warm, as if the book had its own pulse, waiting impatiently for me to open it and make another terrible decision. I didn't. Opening a magical bark book in a magic wolf forest felt like the kind of thing that sparked spontaneous, non-refundable quests, and my current survival rate was too fragile for spontaneity. We crossed a stream where the water glowed faint blue under the surface, lighting smooth stones like lanterns. The pup paused to drink, tail wagging for the first time. Brighter, lighter, free of whatever poison had tried to claim him. The big wolf stopped beside the stream and turned to face me fully. Silver eyes, deep, intelligent, still terrifying, but the predatory edge had softened into something ancient and watchful. He lowered his head, not in threat, in greeting. I copied him, unsure if wolves preferred eye contact or respectful avoidance. I was currently species panicking politely. "Hi," I said. "We haven't formally met. I'm Ezra, acquaintance of your pup, apparently." The wolf blinked slowly. Then, without any warning, he stepped forward and pressed his forehead to mine. I froze. Warm fur, the scent of earth and rain, a deep rumble of breath. Something passed between us. Not words, not images. Something vast and cold. For a moment, my head filled with sensations that weren't mine. Ancient feelings poured directly into my skull. Wind racing over mountains. Snow under paws. Hunger and survival. Loyalty sharp as teeth. A feeling like deep, endless mourning. A pack that was gone. When he pulled back, the fear was replaced by a profound humility. He wasn't a beast. He was a living, furred memory, tied to the very roots of this place. The pup bounded forward and shoved his head under my arm, panting happily. The bigger wolf snorted, as if embarrassed by his tiny companion's enthusiasm. "Okay," I said softly, the weight of the earlier exchange settling heavy on my chest. "I get it. I'll help you. Both of you. The wolf tilted his head, acknowledging the promise. Then he turned and kept walking. So we followed. The grove and the price. We reached the grove at dusk. It wasn't a village. It was a space where the trees bent inward, their crowns interwoven like the ribs of a cathedral. Vines looped between branches, glowing with golden light. The grove felt less like a location and more like a sacred pause. The wolf led us to the center, where a massive trunk stood, wide enough to house a room inside. Its bark was dark silver, leaves shimmering like frost-tipped emerald. At its base were dozens of scars, claw marks, from generations of wolves that had been here before. This was a den. The pup darted inside first, collapsing on a cushion of moss. The big wolf lay beside him, wrapping his tail protectively around the smaller body. He was exhausted too. I sat near them, close enough to show I wasn't running off, but giving them space. I pulled the ledger onto my lap. The bark cover felt smoother now, strangely expectant. I guess this is as good a time as any, I whispered. I opened the book. Words glowed faintly across the first page. This is the ledger of the first seed. Wardens carry it. Wardens are chosen. You are unclaimed. Unclaimed, I repeated, a dry laugh escaping. Yeah, sounds about right. More text bloomed across the wood paper, growing like vines unfurling. You answered a call. You paid a price. The forest will know your name. I swallowed, the warmth leaving my body. What price? The ledger responded without hesitation. Its ink deepened, its tone entirely objective and mechanical, like a cosmic accountant balancing ledgers. A memory. One you loved. One you will not get back. My chest tightened. Faces flickered behind my eyes, but blurred. Mother, father, someone else. A voice I used to know. Gone. A profound hollow space had been created, and the forest had filled it with the ledger's own cold light. I closed the ledger, throat tight. The big wolf rested his head on his paws, watching me through half-closed eyes. There was no pity in his gaze, just a deep, shared recognition of loss. I leaned back against the tree, feeling the cold air. Does your pack have room for one more confused disaster? The pup snored. The big wolf huffed through his nose, a quiet, warm sound. The closest thing I would get to a yes. I pulled my jacket tighter, letting the forest sounds settle into my bones. This place was terrifying, but at least the danger was honest. The big wolf raised his head once more, not relaxed, but waiting, guarding, protecting. This grove wasn't a place to rest. It was a place to heal before the next danger came. Chapter 3. The ledger opens. Knowledge is a seed. Some grow into wisdom, others into war. The ledger, fragment 3. Morning found me with a stiff back, damp clothes, and a wolf pup drooling on my boot. I wasn't sure whether to feel honored or mildly offended. The grove looked different in daylight. Less haunting, more sacred. Dew clung to leaves the size of shields. Vines glowed faint gold where sunlight touched them. The air carried a crisp, clean scent. Cold water, crushed mint, sap, something floral and unfamiliar. The big wolf stretched first, rising with a low rumble and a shake that sent frost and leaves drifting from his fur. The pup copied him with exaggerated yawns and tiny growls, proud of his ferocity despite being about the size of my backpack. I sat up, groaning. Right, new day, still in magical wolf forest, not a dream, not dead. Probably. The big wolf's ears flicked at my voice, but he didn't look surprised. Wolves could probably smell an existential crisis. I held up the ledger. You gave me this. Or your forest did. So what does that make us? Partners? Roommates? Civil cohabitants of moss real estate? The wolf blinked slowly, as if deeply unimpressed with my grasp of mystical titles. Fine. This was clearly going to be a transactional relationship with zero emotional payoff. I sat cross-legged and opened the ledger. Unlike last night, the pages responded instantly. Words bloomed across the bark paper like ink poured into wood grain. Warden, you hold the first seed. It awakens through deeds, not desire. Good, I muttered, because I don't know how to desire anything magically except coffee and a working transit system. The ledger shifted, its tone still entirely bureaucratic. You healed the cub. You are seen. I glanced at the pup, who was attempting to chew a fallen branch with tiny, vicious determination. The big wolf watched him with quiet pride, then turned and stepped outside the grove, ears alert. I felt the shift immediately. No rustling wind, no birdsong. Silence. Something had changed. The big wolf launched into a trot, soundless, controlled, powerful. The pup scrambled after him, and I followed, though I was significantly less graceful than both the ancient wolf and the sentient bark book. We reached the outer edge of the grove. The forest beyond was darker. The trunks were carved with deep claw marks, fresh. Bark stripped away. Sap bled like resin tears. Something predatory had passed through here. The pup sniffed a broken branch, whimpered, and pressed against the big wolf's leg. The ledger flared in my hand. The hollow root moves. My skin crawled. Roots curled along the forest floor, thin, black, lifeless. They wound around fallen leaves, choking them, sucking colour out of petals until they crumbled to ash. A faint, sickening smell of rot hung in the air. This wasn't natural decay. It was something actively malicious. The big wolf lifted his head and let out a low, warning growl. I took a step back. We should leave. A branch cracked. A shadow moved. At first, I thought it was another wolf. Then it stepped into view. A deer. Antlers wide and sharp as spears. But its skin was wrong. Bark-like plates instead of fur, black sap dripping from joints. Its eyes glowed white. It moved in jerks, like a puppet with tangled strings. Hollowed. The pup whined, shaking. The deer lowered its head and charged. The big wolf slammed into it mid-sprint, teeth sinking into wooden flesh. The creature shrieked, an awful, splintering sound that hurt to hear. I froze. Right, the weird magic rocks gave me powers, but forgot to give me an instruction manual or a sword. Then another shape lunged from the trees. A fox, but stretched and wrong, jaw too wide, legs jointed backward. White, glowing eyes locked on me. I lifted my arms to block, which was about as useful as offering prayer in a hurricane. The fox leaped and hit a wall of glowing roots that erupted from the ground in front of me. The shock knocked it back. The roots wrapped around its limbs, snapping with life. The fox thrashed, shrieked, then crumbled into dead bark and dust. The roots sank back into the soil. I stared at my hands, which were now trembling from the sudden, powerful energy surge. I did not do that on purpose. This thing has a mind of its own. The ledger wrote calmly, overriding my panicked inner monologue. The forest does not wait for permission. It protects its seed. My heart hammered. Am I the seed or its babysitter? Y-E-S. Least helpful yes in history. The other corrupted deer finally collapsed under the wolf's jaws, body breaking apart into splinters and rot. The big wolf panted, fur marked with dark sap. The pup rushed to his side, nose pressing anxiously against his face. The wolf leaned into the touch, reassurance without words. Then he turned his gaze to me, not accusatory, expectant. The forest had attacked us. The forest had defended us, and now it waited for me to stop staring like a malfunctioning tourist. I swallowed hard and opened the ledger again. What was that creature? Ink spread slowly, hollowed, forest-born, but severed from life. The rot grows where the root is cut. I knelt beside where the fox had died. Nothing remained but dust and pale fragments of bark. Someone did this, I said. Someone is turning animals into Hollow things. The ledger bled new ink, the stakes escalating from survival to war. The hollow priest, the severed court. Chills crawled across my skin. And they're looking for the seed. Number. The ledger's script sharpened, the focus shifting uncomfortably. They are looking for him. The wolf. The pup. My stomach dropped. I stood slowly, scanning the trees. They found us once. They'll find us again. The big wolf growled, low and certain. He wasn't leaving. Neither was I. We need to move, I said, the new authority in my voice feeling as strange as the moss in my mouth. We can't stay here. The wolf turned and stared directly into my eyes. It was not a challenge. It was agreement. He walked ahead, pup at his side, deeper into the forest. I followed. Not because I knew where we were going, but because something worse was coming behind us, and I was now officially under a non-negotiable, memory-consuming, existential contract. Chapter 4. The First Hunt. A warden protects the living. But first, the living must survive the night. The Ledger, Fragment 4. Night in this forest is a different creature than day. The warmth drains, the light dies, and the air carries a quiet that isn't calm. It's watchful, predatory. The big wolf, whom I still didn't have a proper name for, settling mentally on Stonejaw for his general granite-like demeanour, walked ahead of us with ears forward, body low, eyes scanning the dark. Every so often, he'd stop, sniff the air, and change direction without explanation. Wolves don't do exposition. The pup copied him sometimes. Ears too big, tail too short, trying his hardest to look fierce. Other times he trotted beside me, bumping my leg like a dog who'd decided I was officially part of the pack, even if I was definitely the weakest member. I kept one hand on the ledger strapped to my belt. The other carried a long branch I'd found on the path. My weapon, my stick, my flimsy symbol of absolute desperation. At least it made me feel marginally less edible. We moved until the moon rose, a pale silver coin tucked between branches. When it reached its peak, Stonejaw stopped abruptly. He sniffed the air, body tightening. "What is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he simply vanished into the shadows. The pup stared after him, tail stiff. "Oh no," I said. "Absolutely not. Don't you—" The pup darted forward and disappeared into the darkness. I ran after him, because apparently every bad decision in my life starts with chasing someone smaller and louder than me into immediate danger. Branches whipped my face. Roots clawed at my boots. The forest closed in until the only sound was my own hammering pulse. Then I heard it. A scream. Not human. Boar. A huge one. Branches snapped ahead, and something roared. Not a squeal, but a guttural, monstrous sound that made my spine lock. I stumbled into a clearing just in time to see Stonejaw launch himself at a corrupted boar the size of a car. Its body was plated with bark-like armor, tusks curving up like ivory scythes. Black sap dripped from cracked skin. Stonejaw hit it like a battering ram, teeth sinking deep. The boar bucked, slamming him into a tree so hard bark shattered. "Stonejaw!" The name tore out of my throat, unbidden. The pup rushed forward, and I grabbed him around the chest, yanking him back as a tusk ploughed through the earth where he would have been. The boar turned toward us, white eyes burning. Stonejaw staggered to his feet, dazed, real blood dripping down his shoulder. He wasn't invincible. He wasn't immortal. He was just a wolf fighting something that shouldn't exist. The boar charged the pup and me. I did the only thing a rational person would do in this situation. I held up a stick and screamed. The boar didn't care. It was a heartbeat away when the ground split beneath it. Roots erupted, thick, knotted, alive, wrapping around its legs, dragging it sideways. It crashed into a tree, body thrashing as the roots tightened. Stonejaw slammed into its throat, tearing at the corrupted flesh. The boar convulsed once, twice, then went still. Its body cracked apart, breaking into dry splinters that drifted to the ground like dead leaves. Silence followed. Long, heavy. My heart pounded hard enough to shake my ribs. Stonejaw limped toward me, blood matting his fur. His movements were slow, weaker. The pup pressed his face against Stonejaw's chest, whining in panic. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, none of that." I knelt, hands shaking. The ledger responded to the urgency, pages flipping open on their own. LOOK. A pulse of sickening light glimmered beneath Stonejaw's ribs, a small, sickly corruption spreading under the skin where the boar struck him. Not as bad as the pup had been, but growing. I looked at the crystalline shard remnant on my belt. Barely glowing now. Cracked. Diminished. Could it work again? The ledger wrote slowly, its objective, contractual tone returning, "Yes, but not without price." My stomach twisted. Last time I lost a memory, a real one. Sacrifice is the seed's language. The pup whimpered, nuzzling Stonejaw, licking the wound. Stonejaw swayed on his feet, eyes unfocused. I pressed the shard to his chest. "Please," I whispered, "just once more." Light flared, pale green this time, consuming the last dregs of power in the shard. The corruption hissed and tore away, shredded by living roots that burst from Stonejaw's skin and dissolved the rot. Stonejaw collapsed into my arms. His breathing steadied. His heartbeat returned to a slow, strong rhythm. His life, saved again. And something in my mind went dark. Not a little memory this time, a whole piece. Someone's face, someone laughing, gone. A blank wall where a profound connection used to be. I gasped, clutching my head, the feeling of hollow loss overwhelming. The ledger wrote softly, confirming the transaction. "The seed remembers what you forget." My vision blurred. Stonejaw pressed his forehead to mine, steadying me. His eyes were clear again, alive, aware. The pup nuzzled us both, tail wagging frantically. I forced a shaky breath. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered. "I can't keep giving pieces of myself to save you." But even as I said it, I knew I would. The system had my number, and my self-preservation instincts were clearly out of order. Stonejaw stepped back, slow but steady, then lifted his head and howled. Not a warning. A declaration. We weren't hiding anymore. The hollow root hunted us. We would hunt it back. Chapter 5. Cedar Gate. By the time the trees thinned and the forest light grew wide and open, my legs felt like they were auditioning for a horror movie about possessed noodles. Stonejaw walked with a steady limp, refusing to slow down. The pup trotted beside him, occasionally glancing back to make sure I hadn't passed out and died. I appreciated the concern. Really gave a guy confidence. The forest ended all at once. Not gradually, not in scattered farmland or thinning brush. One step I was in dense, primeval woods. The next, I stood before a wide river and a stone bridge leading to walls of carved timber and iron. A city, a real one. Wooden palisades reinforced with iron ribs curved around it, tall enough to stop giants or, at minimum, very determined hollowed deer. Torches flickered along the top, though it was still daylight. Watchtowers flanked the gate, and banners fluttered in the wind, painted with symbols of leaves and crossed spears. Humans walked the walls, humans in armor. I stared, shocked by how normal it looked. Normal, if normal was medieval fantasy industrial design with a pervasive smell of fear and a chance of archery. Stonejaw didn't hesitate. He padded across the bridge like someone who'd done this before, though the guards on the wall clearly disagreed. "Wolf!" someone shouted. "Two wolves!" another corrected. Arrows lifted. Spears braced. Soldiers leaned over the parapets with expressions best described as deeply wolf-suspicious. I raised my hands. "Hi. Hello. Please do not skewer the wildlife, or me, especially me. I'm legally required to remind you I'm under contract with the local ecology." A commanding voice shouted from the gatehouse, "Hold!" The heavy wooden gates creaked open just enough for a figure to stride out. A tall woman in lacquered armour, blue cloak tied across her shoulders. Dark hair in a tight braid, eyes sharp as flint. She held a spear like she was born knowing where every enemy's heart would be. She took in the scene. Giant wolf, smaller wolf, confused human covered in sap and trauma, and made a long, professional sigh. "Of course," she muttered. "The wolf brings home a stray human." Stonejaw sat, tail sweeping once across the dirt. The woman pinched the bridge of her nose. "You vanish for 6 days, and when you return, it's with a forest outsider who looks like he lost a fight with a compost heap." "I was unconscious for most of that, actually," I said. Her eyes flicked to me. "You speak?" "Occasionally, mostly in sarcasm. Sorry in advance." Her lips pressed together in a knot smile. "Name?" "Ezra." "And your relation to Stonejaw?" I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "I guess we're friends?" Stonejaw snorted, loud, unimpressed. "Okay, acquaintances with trauma bonding." He watched me trade my memories for his health. It's complicated. The guards on the wall slowly lowered their weapons. The woman, clearly the captain, looked Stonejaw over with growing concern, noting the barely contained corruption marks on his fur. "You're injured." Stonejaw growled softly, not in threat, but in annoyance at being noticed limping. The pup bumped into his leg protectively. The captain's eyes softened a fraction. "Bring them inside." The Warden Hall. She led us across the bridge and through the open gates. Inside was life. Shops, market stalls, smiths hammering iron, kids chasing each other with wooden swords, smells of bread and smoke and leather. Earthy, loud, chaotic, human. Civilization never looked so terrifyingly beautiful. A boy carrying a basket of apples froze when he saw Stonejaw, eyes widening. "Is that—" "Yes," the captain deadpanned. "Do not pet him. Do not feed him. Do not ask him to eat your enemies." The boy sighed in dramatic disappointment. We followed her to a low stone building near the centre square. A wooden sign hung above the door, carved with leaves and a spear. Warden Hall. She pushed the door open and motioned us inside. A wide room waited beyond, maps covering walls, shelves of scrolls, weapons racked neatly, a central table carved from a tree trunk. People worked quietly in the shadows, scribes, scouts, runners. The air smelled of cedar and ink. The captain removed her gauntlets. "I am Ceres Varin, commander of Cedar Gate. You've arrived at an inconvenient time." "They say that about most of my life," I said. Ceres studied me, gaze sharp but not unkind. "You carry a ledger." My heart stopped. She knew. How? Because the last warden died holding one. Silence fell like a dropped stone. My voice came out thin. "What happened to them?" "The hollow root happened." Ceres faced Stonejaw, placing a hand gently on his muzzle. "You survived," she whispered. "Good." The pup nudged her hand, tail wagging, and for a moment her controlled exterior cracked into a soft smile. Then she looked at me. "How did you heal him?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "Magic, from the seed, but it runs on a strictly terrible economy. The seed always demands payment." Her expression hardened, grim, understanding. "Then you've traded one life for a piece of your own." "Yeah," I said quietly. "It took something from me." Ceres didn't ask what. She knew loss didn't need naming. Instead, she motioned to a seat and poured water from a clay jug. "Drink. Eat. Then you'll tell me everything." Stonejaw discovered a warm hearth in the corner and lay beside it, eyes heavy. The pup curled against him, already snoring. For a moment, just a breath, the world was safe. I drank the water. It tasted like cold river stone and honesty. Ceres dropped into a chair across from me and folded her arms. "Start with how you got here." I exhaled. The moss, The stone, the shard, the pup, the boar, the sacrifice. I told her everything, including the feeling of the hollow space in my mind where a memory used to reside. Her eyes darkened with every word. When I finished, she pushed back from the table. Then it's worse than we feared. The hollow root isn't just spreading in the wilderness. It's infecting the living forest itself. That book isn't a trophy. It's a command. I didn't ask for it. No one ever does. She paced once, hands behind her back. Cedar Gate is the first line between the forest and the human lands. If the hollow root reaches us, they'll use this city the way they use the corrupted beasts, puppets. Stonejaw growled in his sleep. Ceres stopped pacing and fixed me with a measured, sober look. We need you, Ezra Haynes, and the wolves need you. The hollow root doesn't hunt lightly. If they've come this far, they're after more than the pup. I swallowed. They're after Stonejaw. And now, she said quietly, they'll be after you. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, she extended her hand. Not as a captain, as someone asking for help. Cedar Gate stands with the wolves. Will you stand with us? My pulse drummed in my ears. The ledger lay warm at my hip. The pup dreamed peacefully beside the hearth. Stonejaw lifted his head and met my eyes, silver and steady. I placed my hand in Ceres's. Yes, good, she said, because tomorrow we march. Chapter 6. Bound by Bark and Blood. An oath is a root. It holds when storms would tear the crown away. The Ledger, Fragment 6. Morning in Cedar Gate tastes like smoke and bread. The city woke early and loud, blacksmiths ringing anvils like bells, runners skidding across frost, cooks ladling out stew to guards who ate standing up with spears propped on their shoulders. A woman on a ladder hammered a new plank over a splintered shutter. Life, loud, chaotic, and clinging to survival. Kids stared at Stonejaw from a daring but safe distance. The pup tried to stare back with equal intensity, then sneezed and fell off the step. I loved him more with every catastrophic wobble. Ceres moved through the square like a knife through cloth, clean, precise, inevitable. Eat, she said, thrusting a steaming heel of bread into my hands. Then we see the council. They'll want to meet the man carrying a ledger. I'm more of a ledger courier, I said. A ledger rideshare even. She didn't smile. You're also the only person Stonejaw hasn't bitten who isn't a child or a baker. That carries weight here. Your political system terrifies me. Good. It's working. Stonejaw loped alongside us, the limp nearly gone but not forgotten. The pup bounced ahead, detoured to try and terrify a pigeon, then returned with heroic satisfaction. The council house. Ceres led us into the council house, a long, low building panelled with cedar boards. Inside, a round room, a round table, and 7 people who looked like they'd slept in segments. The first to stand was a broad-shouldered man with iron grey hair and a craftsman's hands. Dalin, quartermaster, I count things that keep us alive. A woman with ink-stained sleeves nodded tightly. Mara, records. I remember what keeps us from making the same mistake twice. A hawk-eyed scout lounged in a chair. Res. I chase shadows until they trip. The others were introduced, Grella the healer, and several community leaders. All watched me with quiet calculation. Ceres didn't waste time. Report. Res tapped 3 mask markers southeast of Cedar Gate. Tracks here. Corruption along the creek. Hollowed deer. Patches of dead moss like blight kisses. Something's probing for a soft place to push. Grella's jaw tightened. Infection in 2 woodcutters yesterday. Not bites? Spores, maybe. We cut the wounds and burned the pus. They lived. Dalin moved a little carved wolf toward the city symbol. Grain's fine. Iron's low. If it's war, we'll need spikes for the palisade and heads for the arrows. Ceres flicked a glance at me. The forest is sick. We have a warden. Speak. I rested a hand on the ledger and cleared my throat. I didn't ask for this, but the forest gave it anyway, and the price of keeping it is pretty clear. I set the ledger on the table. It opened by itself. Gasps flickered around the circle. The bark paper glowed faintly. Words wrote themselves in living ink: Cedar Gate, boundary between tended and untended. Choose your route. Dallin leaned in. Choose it how? The ledger answered, establishing the core terms of the contract. Oath. Blood. Work. Ceres's brows knit. Explain. Your walls hold back teeth, not rot. Your arrows break masks, not hunger. If you want the forest to stand with you, you must stand with it. Plant, mend, guard. Mara whispered, half to herself, the old treaties. It's calling for a civic bond, I said. Not just defenses, a pact. The magic expects you to invest in the land. The ledger wrote a final pointed line. This city will be saved by many small hands. Ceres met each pair of eyes in turn. We do both. We plant and we sharpen. We mend and we train. She looked to me. And the cost? They need to know what the price of this magic is. Stonejaw, as if on cue, lifted his massive head and set it on the table with the world-weary dignity of an old general. The pup popped up beside him like an exclamation point. It took a memory, I said, my voice carefully flat. Something I loved. That's the price it asked, and it didn't ask nicely. The magic grows stronger, but I get smaller. Silence landed again. Not pity. Respect. Resolve, Ceres nodded once. Then we don't spend you lightly. The ledger flared, sudden and bright. New script burned across the page. Urgent. Call a pack. A ripple went around the room. Ceres folded her arms. Wolves beyond Stonejaw? The ledger's bark flexed like breath. Not wolves. People, those who will walk when others run. Mara's voice turned brisk, energized. Recruitment notices at the market. Shift rosters. Oath to keep them from playing hero and getting killed. Stonejaw hunts what hunts us, I said, glancing at the wolf. But he can't be everywhere. The ledger is asking the city to become its own pack. Grella laid a hand on the ledger respectfully. And what does the pack hunt? North Edge, fallen fur, masks among the roots. Ress was moving before the last word formed. On my way. Sarah snapped a gesture, and two runners sprinted for the door. She looked at me. You're with me. I swallowed. Great. Love a scenic route. Darlene tossed me a short spear, balanced and plain. I caught it by reflex. He grunted approval. Pointy end goes and rot. Thank you for that nuanced tactical doctrine. He almost smiled. Welcome to Cedar Gate. The North Edge. North Edge was not scenic. It was a gouge. Where forest should have met field, the ground had torn open around a fallen fir. Roots yanked out like a scalp ripped from the earth. The trunk lay on its side, needles blackening, cones cracked open and seeping pale sap. Masks waited among the roots. Not worn, grown. Wooden faces with white eye slits, half-formed, still attached to pulsing root fibres. Some twitched when the wind blew. This isn't a raid, Ceres murmured, spear tight in her hand. It's a seed bed. I crouched beside the trunk and touched a root with the flat of my spear. It pulsed once under the wood, slow and hungry. The ledger warmed under my palm. SK. I didn't speak out loud. What do you want me to do? Plant. I looked up at Ceres. We don't burn. Not yet. We plant. Rots feeding on torn earth. If the living ground takes root before the masks hatch, maybe the forest chokes them. Ceres stared at me for a beat, then nodded to her runners. Grella's crews. Buckets, spades, rope. Now. Darlin's crews arrived with cuttings and saplings, willow switches bundled in tight loops, armfuls of hardy ground cover with stubborn little roots. Kids came too, refusing to leave. Ceres opened her mouth to send them away. The ledger wrote, Firm. Many small hands. Ceres shut her mouth. We planted. Lines of people knelt around the fallen fir, pressing living roots into torn dirt, watering dry patches, coaxing stubborn soil to accept green. I pressed my palm to the ground. I'm asking, I whispered. Please. The forest answered. Slowly, then all at once. Green spread like ink underwater. Threads of root catching, gripping, weaving. The new plantings sent out hair-fine tendrils, braiding into the dirt, tightening around torn earth like stitches pulling a wound closed. The masks shivered. Bowstrings creaked. The ground tightened. A mask tore free, snapping from its tendrils like a tooth ripped from rotten gum. Arrows sang, pinning it to the soil. It spasmed once, twice, then went still. 2 more masks tore loose, 2 more volleys, 2 more still bodies, and then the fallen fir settled, contained. Ceres let out a breath she'd been holding. We plant, she said. We sharpen. Both, I echoed. I stood, wiped dirt on my pants, and turned to the ring of tired, muddy, stubborn humans. Cedar Gate, I said, louder than I felt brave enough to be. This isn't a battle we fight once. It's a garden we guard every day. I held up the ledger. Swear with me, not to a crown, or a god, or a war. To each other. To work. To keep this ground alive. Silence fell. Then the girl with the saplings stuck her dirty hand in the air. I swear! Voices rose around the circle. I swear! Stonejaw lifted his head and howled, a long, rolling sound that shivered the air and settled into the bones. The pup tried and made a squeak. I pressed my palm to the dirt. Blood from a torn knuckle seeped into the soil. Bound, I said. The ledger wrote the final word of the day. Bound, and for the first time since waking with moss in my mouth, I felt something take root in me that wasn't grief. Purpose. Chapter 7. The Shard Wakes. Power is not a gift. It is an answer, and every answer changes the one who asks. The Ledger. Fragment 7. Cedargate slept lightly that night. Not the peaceful sleep of a safe town, but the wary drift of farmers who kept boots by the door and spears under the bed. I slept on a cot near the hearth in the Warden hall. Stonejaw rested beside it, a silent mountain of fur and scars. The pup sprawled across my legs like a furry, heavily armed sandbag. At some point in the night, the ledger hummed. Not loud, not urgent. Just enough to wake me, a proprietary little noise. I sat up, careful not to disturb the pup, whose tiny snores were the most hopeful sound I'd heard since arriving. The ledger rested by my bedroll, faintly glowing between the cracks of its bark cover. I opened it. A single line appeared, carved into the wood like a wound slowly healing. A seed is not a weapon. I frowned. You sure? Because the root defense thing was pretty weapon adjacent. New words spiraled across the page, defining the systemic limitation. Power without price is poison. You have paid. The forest has paid. The hollow root will pay. My stomach tightened. I don't want to become a killer. Then do not defend, mend, guard. A warden is not a king, not a priest, not a lord. A warden is a wall that stands. I let out a slow breath. The ledger wasn't demanding moral perfection. It was setting parameters for survival. A second line appeared, shifting the focus entirely. Stonejaw's name is not his name. I sat up again, more awake now. What? Stonejaw lifted his head, ears twitching, eyes half open, like he'd heard his name through a dream. I read the words twice. He has another name? All spirits do. Wood and wolf and water. Names carry power. I swallowed. Can I know it? A full page illuminated if he chooses. Stonejaw stared at me, silent and steady. He stood, nudged the pup off my feet, and padded toward the door. The meaning was clear. Follow. Lord of Pine and frost. We left Cedar Gate in silence. The moon hung low, silver as bone. The forest welcomed them, branches bending, leaves whispering, moss softening under paws. I stumbled over a root, and the pup looked back with judgment. We walked until the trees opened into a clearing lit by moonlight. A pool lay still in the center, ringed by stones. Fireflies hovered above it like floating stars. Stonejaw stepped to the water's edge and lowered his head. The pup curled beside him. I stayed back. The wolf's reflection shimmered in the pool. Slowly, ripples changed the image, not distorting it, but revealing something beneath. His fur seemed woven from mist and moonlight. His eyes glowed not silver, but deep green, like ancient canopy. The scars vanished. His body grew taller, broader, more myth than mortal. The ledger wrote, "He is Lord of Pine and Frost, Watcher of the northern border, Son of the first forest." The pool whispered a name, not in sound, in knowing. Orens. My heart stuttered. Stonejaw, Orens, turned and walked to me. He pressed his forehead to mine, slow, deliberate. A pulse passed through my skull, cold, then warm, then heavy with memory that wasn't mine. Snow falling on endless branches, wolves running beneath frozen starlight, loyalty vast and cold as the northern wastes. He pulled away. He wasn't just a wolf, he was a legend, still breathing. "Hello," I whispered. "Orens." He blinked once. Acknowledgement. The pup butted my knee with his head like, yes, he has a fancy name. I'm still the cutest. I scratched his ears. "I didn't forget you. You're obviously Prince Bitey of Tripping Hazard." Orens turned toward the deeper woods, tail high, posture changing from guardian to hunter. Something moved out there. Something close. The ledger burned in my hand. The hollow root waits. It knows your name. Branches shook. Leaves trembled. A hiss rose through the clearing, too dry to be wind, too alive to be silence. Shapes emerged, more hollowed beasts, wolves this time. Their bodies twisted, jaws stretched wrong, eyes white and dead. Orens didn't growl. He walked forward, silent as death. The pup pressed against my leg, trembling. I lifted the shard remnant. It flickered weakly, still cracked, barely glowing. Using it again would certainly cost another piece of myself. But Orens didn't need healing. He needed backup, and I needed to stop waiting for fear to decide everything. The wolves lunged. Orens hit the first like a hammer, teeth crushing its wooden throat. The pup leaped on another, distracting it enough to throw it off balance. A third hollowed wolf broke for me. I didn't think. I jammed the shard into the dirt. Roots exploded upward, grabbing the hollowed wolf mid-air and slamming it into the ground. It snarled, snapped, thrashed. I felt the shard draining me. Not a memory this time. Strength. My muscles trembled. My vision dimmed. Orens tore the last creature apart and stepped over the bodies, moving to the one pinned by roots. He didn't kill it. He stared into its white eyes, letting the creature see him. A pulse of green light rippled from Orens' paws into the earth, through the roots, into the creature. Its wooden body cracked, shattered, turned to dust. Orens looked at me, not angry, just measuring. I fell to my knees, shaky. The shard dimmed to almost nothing. The ledger wrote softly, articulating the principle. You protect. You do not consume. You are still yourself. Orens walked to me and pressed his nose to my forehead again, brief and grounding. Then he turned back toward Cedar Gate. The message was clear. This wasn't just a hunt. It was a warning. The hollow root was testing, probing, learning, and I was done being tested. I stood, knees wobbly, and followed Orens and the pup back toward the sleeping city. A new line formed in the ledger as we walked. War begins with a whisper, and someone has started shouting. Chapter 8. The Price of Healing. A wound closed without pain is a lie. Something bleeds for the healing. The ledger, Fragment 8. By the time we returned to Cedar Gate, dawn was nothing but a pale suggestion behind heavy clouds. A cold wind pushed at the torches on the walls, scattering sparks. Orange didn't limp anymore. The pup did a victory lap around the courtyard, barking triumphantly at nothing and everything. Someone tossed him a stale biscuit. He tried to carry it and tripped over his own feet. A small gathering of guards applauded like they were watching a festival act. Orange stood beside me, calm and watchful. The moment the gates closed behind us, he lowered his head and dozed, exhausted but alive. The shard remnant at my belt had gone dark, sleeping too. I barely made it 3 steps before a shout came from the Warden Hall. "Commander!" Cirrus stood in the doorway, armor half fastened, expression stretched between anger and fear. Her eyes went to Oren's first, the blood on his fur, the exhaustion. Then to me. "You went out while the city slept." "We're back. You're lucky you came back at all." She didn't shout. Cirrus never wasted breath on noise. Inside the hall, the council was already assembled. Mara with ink on her sleeves, Dalin with wood chips in his beard, Grella rolling the sleeves of her healer's smock. A man lay on the central table, breathing shallow and ragged. His arm was wrapped in bandages soaked with something dark and tar-like. His skin around the wound was black-veined. Rot. A second casualty. Not a hollowed beast. A person. My stomach dropped. What happened? Grella didn't look up. Field hand from the South Orchard. Scratches only, but whatever caught him carried corruption. It's spreading fast. Darlene slammed a crate down. If we lose workers, we lose harvest. If we lose harvest, we starve come winter. Mara's voice shook. There are children in this city. Cirrus turned to me, not commanding, asking. What can we do? I stared at the shard remnant. I knew the answer, but I also knew the cost was steep, immediate, and utterly non-negotiable. The man's eyes opened, glassy, terrified. Please, I don't want to turn into one of them. His voice cracked. He had a wedding ring. He was someone's father. I closed my hand around the shard remnant. It pulsed weakly, almost empty. I moved to the table. Hold his arm. Grella pressed it down gently, murmuring to calm him. I touched the shard to the infected skin. The rot writhed under the surface, tendrils curling away from the crystal like worms trying to flee a flame. Light flared. Pain shot through my skull, not sharp this time, but deep. Like someone pulling a thread from the very fabric of my mind, unraveling something I'd never notice until I reached for it and found it gone. My knees buckled. Orange growled and braced himself against my side, holding me up. The man arched, gasped, then went still. The rot vanished. His breathing steadied. Grella opened his bandage. Clean skin, pink and warm, no trace of corruption. He was safe. I wasn't. I sagged against Orange, vision tunneling. Grella caught me before I hit the floor. Ezra! Stay with me. Look at me. I'm fine, I lied, though the world was sideways and my brain felt like it was missing furniture. Dalene hovered behind her, face pale. How many times can he do that? The ledger answered, writing itself open on the table for the council to witness. There is no measure, only what is given. Cirrus swallowed hard. You're burning yourself away. I laughed, thin and hollow. I'm not dead. But you're less, Mara said softly. Every time. I sat up slowly. Orange pressed his head under my hand, steadying me. His warmth grounded me. I won't stop, I said. You should, Cirrus replied, painfully honest, because if you die, this city loses its warden, and we lose our chance. I met her eyes. I would rather lose myself than watch your people die. The man on the table whispered, Thank you. Voice thick with tears. Grella laid her hand on my shoulder. You can't heal everyone. No, I said, looking at the shard, dim, cracked, nearly empty. But I can heal someone. The ledger wrote slowly, its contractual logic shifting to community management. Healing grows weaker if it is hoarded, stronger if shared. Cirrus frowned. Shared? With who? How? The ledger answered, the city plants. The city heals. The city learns your name. Mara took a shaky breath. It's not calling him to be a hero. It's calling us to be a people. Darlene slammed his palm on the table. Then we build a healer's ward. We train every hand that can hold a salve or boil water. If rot touches a family, they don't face it alone. The shard pulsed faintly. Not brighter, just steadier. A strange echo of approval. I stood, breathing slow, steadying myself. Orange rose with me, tail sweeping once across the floor. Cirrus watched us both, jaw set, eyes fierce. Then we become everything the hollow root is afraid of, she said. A city that refuses to die. I let out a slow, shaky laugh. Just so you know, no one in my old life ever rallied behind me like that. Maybe they should have, Cirrus said, but you're here now. And we don't waste what we're given. Cirrus waited until the room was nearly empty before stepping close. You're killing yourself slowly, Ezra. I know. You don't get to do that alone. My throat tightened. I never asked anyone to follow me. You didn't have to. She touched the ledger with 2 fingers. We stand with the Warden, even when it hurts. Orange made a low rumbling sound, agreement or warning, or both. I looked at the sleeping man, then at the shard. Maybe I could keep giving pieces of myself, but one truth settled deep and heavy in my bones. I wasn't just healing people, I was changing myself, and soon I wouldn't remember who I used to be. Chapter 9. The Seed Road. A warden may wield the seed, but a warden is not the seed. If he does not grow roots of his own, he will fall with the tree. The Ledger, Fragment 9. Cedargate changed fast. The very next morning, the city sounded less like a frightened border town and more like a hive. People weren't just preparing for attack, they were working. Fixing roofs, digging out irrigation channels from the river, planting hardy ground cover along the walls. The city was alive, and the ledger pulsed warm at my side with every step I took. But there was something else moving beneath that warmth. A whisper, dull but steady, like a distant heartbeat. Come. Not a command, a direction, a pull. I knew exactly where it started, under Cedar Gate, in the old cellars. Cirrus didn't love the idea. She stood at the trapdoor in the Warden Hall, arms folded, expression carved from stone. You want to poke around in old mines under the city because a book told you to. The book is rarely wrong, I said. It's a book. It's a magical bark book that writes by itself and occasionally insults my life choices. It's an infallible, terrifying source, I countered. Cirrus pinched the bridge of her nose. That's not comforting. Orange was already at the trapdoor, tail sweeping impatiently. The pup bounced on his paws like a toddler who'd eaten sugar and swallowed a bell. Cirrus sighed. Fine. I'm going with you. The memory of water. We descended into the dark. The cellars were old stone, Roman in a fantasy world old. The air smelled of damp earth and cool rock. We passed frescoes worn to ghost paint, wolves curled around trees, humans planting saplings, a great stag made of roots, pictures telling stories no one living remembered. The ledger grew warmer, left, down. The corridor opened into a vast cavern. Roots dangled from the ceiling like chandeliers woven from bone and wood. A shallow pool glowed faint green at the centre, water perfectly still. The ledger snapped open in my hand, writing with deliberate script. The seed road begins where humans and forest breathe together. Cirrus scanned the chamber with the soldier's eye. This room is older than Cedargate, older than any timber we've ever cut. Orange stepped to the water's edge. The surface rippled, reflecting his silver eyes. I knelt beside the pool. Okay, I said. Now what? The ledger answered, "Roots have memories. So does water. Drink." Cirrus grabbed my shoulder. "Absolutely not. That is glowing water in a haunted basement." A root shifted across the ceiling. "It is extremely haunted," Cirrus corrected. Orange nudged the pool and then me. His gaze held no urgency, just certainty. Trust. This wasn't a seed healing. This was something else entirely. I cupped the water in my hands and drank. Cold. Alive cold. Sweet. The water seeped into my bones, and the chamber blurred. The pool deepened into darkness, and something in the water looked back at me. A memory. A small boy planting a sapling outside a red brick apartment building, sunlight catching his hair. A tiny wolf pup made of shadow and light watching curiously nearby. A voice, warm, gentle, unmistakably my mother's, laughing. The vision shattered. I collapsed to my hands and knees, gasping. Cirrus caught my shoulder. "Ezra!" "I didn't lose anything," I whispered, shocked, trembling. I got something back. A heartbeat of silence. Then Orange lowered his head, pressing his muzzle gently against my cheek. The ledger wrote across the stone floor itself. Memory is not only taken. Some roots grow downward. Some grow back. Cirrus stared at the glowing words. "Are you telling me the forest can restore what the seed takes?" The ledger did not answer. Instead, "The seed road is yours alone. Learn to call root, stone, and water. When you can command without sacrifice, you will be a warden." My pulse hammered. "You're saying I can use the seed without losing myself?" "Yes, if you earn it." Power without price. A rustling noise cut through the chamber. Soft, skittering. Cirrus turned, spear up. 3 masked shapes crawled from a crack in the stone wall. Hollowed humans. Their limbs moved wrong, fingers bent backward like broken sticks. White eyes fixed on us. Cirrus braced to fight. Orange snarled. But the ledger burned hot in my hand. Not asking for sacrifice. Not draining memory. Inviting. Root. I reached out. Not with hands, not with the shard, but with that new sensation living inside my bones. That clean, whole memory of home. And the roots listened. The ceiling vines dropped in a sudden cascade, wrapping around the hollowed, binding arms and legs, pulling them impossibly still. They didn't shriek. They didn't fight. They simply stopped. Sarah stared at me like I'd torn open the sky. "What did you just do?" I swallowed. "I didn't pay for it." For the first time, the magic didn't feel like a hungry power demanding pieces of me. It felt like an ally. A tiny, fierce spark of hope lit under my ribs. I turned to the ledger. "What now?" The answer appeared instantly. "Now you learn. Now you grow. Now you stop running." I stood, knees shaking slightly but steadying with every breath. Cirrus exhaled, shoulder dropping just a fraction. "If you can do that, Ezra, we might actually win." Orange stepped into the doorway, tail sweeping once, an invitation to move forward. The seed road had begun. Chapter 10. The Summer Court. The forest grows in silence. Cities grow in noise. Courts grow in lies. The ledger, Fragment X. If Cedar Gate was a stubborn outpost, then the Summer Court was everything the forest wanted people to believe civilization could be. Bright, beautiful, deadly. We didn't march there as an army. We travelled as a delegation. Cirrus in command, 10 guards, 3 scouts, Grella the healer, 2 traders hoping to negotiate grain rights, and me, carrying a book older than kingdoms. Orange travelled at my side, not as a beast to be caged, but as an ally. The pup stayed in Cedar Gate. He had become a mascot, a morale officer, and a general menace best left near hearths. The road wound through open fields, golden grass bending in waves beneath warm wind. Wildflowers painted hillsides in blues, purples, and reds. Farmers working the fields paused to stare at us, some bowing to Ceres, more bowing to the wolf. The summer court, called Veridel, rose from the centre of a wide valley built into a cluster of towering white gold trees as wide as houses, polished smooth by generations of hands and magic. Bridges of woven branch stretched between them like spider silk frozen in sunlight. Gardens hung in terraces, overflowing with fruit and blossoms. It was gorgeous, so gorgeous it felt utterly unreal. A place designed by someone who knew exactly how to sell paradise. Audience in Veridel. The guards arrived. They wore armor of lacquered leaf scale and sun-tinted steel, helms crested with feathers. Their eyes flicked from Ceres to me to Oren's. The gates parted without anyone touching them, branches unweaving themselves to let us through. "Welcome to Veridel, city of the summer court," a herald intoned. "You come under banner of Cedar Gate. State your purpose." Ceres stepped forward. "We seek counsel and alliance." The herald's gaze drifted to the ledger hanging at my side, then settled on Oren's. His mask of courtesy cracked. "And you bring a relic of the first forest?" he murmured. "That would be me," I said, stepping up beside Oren's. "And this is Oren's. We're here because the hollow root is mobilizing, and your borders are next." The herald spoke louder, voice carrying across the courtyard. "The council will see you, but only the warden and the wolf may enter the high chamber." Ceres bristled. "You ask me to send the man holding a world-saving artifact into your court alone?" The herald dipped his head slightly. "This is not a request. This is tradition." Ceres leaned close to me. "Don't eat anything they offer. Don't agree to anything unless the ledger writes it down. And Ezra, try not to start a war." "That's a lot of don'ts, Ceres. You're a lot of risk." Orange gently nudged her shoulder with his muzzle, an affectionate dismissal of her worry. She scowled at him, then at me, then stepped back with visible reluctance. The doors to the high chamber opened. Orange and I entered together. The Summer Queen. If Cedar Gate was built for survival, the Summer Court was built for spectacle. The chamber was circular, enormous, ringed by pillars that spiraled like growing vines carved in marble. Flowers floated lazily through the air, just drifting. At the far end, seated on a platform of polished root, was the Queen of the Summer Court. Young, but not human young. Ageless young. Hair braided with leaves, eyes gold as noon. She regarded me with a gaze sharp enough to split truth from lie. "Warden." I swallowed. "Hi." Orange sat beside me, massive and calm. The Queen's eyes flicked to him. "You bring a legend back to my gates. I never thought to see him again." Orange lowered his head in acknowledgement, but did not bow. "Still proud." "Good," she murmured. Her gaze returned to me. "You carry the ledger." "It seems to be carrying me, actually," I replied. She laughed, not cruel, but amused. "Most wardens are crushed by their duties within a month. If it has not crushed you yet, perhaps you are not entirely hopeless." Wow, thank you for the vote of confidence. The Queen stood, descending the platform with bare feet. She walked a slow circle around me, studying my common clothes, my posture, the shard remnant at my belt. "Why have you come to Veridel, Ezra Haynes?" I glanced at the ledger. No writing, no advice. Honesty then, because the hollow root is spreading. It's corrupted the woods around Cedar Gate. It's using animals, people, turning them into hollowed things. We barely held the line, and I'm not strong enough alone. You are next. The Queen's expression turned somber. The hollow root is not a disease, it is a rebellion. The word hit like a hammer. Rebellion? She nodded. There was a court before ours. The Severed Court. A people who sought immortality in the roots of the first seed. His mother ended them. She gestured to Oren's, whose ears flattened. Not all died. Some fled. Some grew bitter. They have returned. And they're looking for the seed. They're looking for you. she corrected. Because you are the first warden to touch the seed in 3 generations. The first to wake it. They want to corrupt the first forest through its chosen. If you fall, the seed falls. If the seed falls, every living root connected to it follows. That's the entire world. I stared at the floor, then at Oren's. His eyes watched mine, steady, loyal. The Queen stepped closer. I will not lie to you, Warden. You are untrained. You are weak. You are divided by fear and burden. But she touched the ledger, her finger tracing the bark. You have done more with a cracked fragment than full wardens once did with whole seeds. You earned power without sacrificing yourself. I met her gaze. Then teach me to stop needing to earn it and start wielding it. She raised a hand. The ground trembled. Roots burst from the marble floor, twisting, weaving, forming a floating staircase of living wood. The air shimmered with green light. The Festival of Bloom begins tomorrow, she said. 1,000 eyes will watch you. Some will cheer. Some will hope you fall. She smiled a sharp, dangerous smile. We are summer. We value growth. Show us you can grow without breaking. Oren stepped onto the lowest floating root. I followed. The Queen called after me. And, Warden. I turned. Her gold eyes gleamed. There are spies of the severed court in my city. Do not trust anyone who greets your arrival with a smile. I swallowed. Then we climbed, and the summer court waited above. Chapter 11. A city under siege. Even flowers cast shadows. The brightest cities do too. The ledger, fragment 11. Summer court mornings feel engineered. The weather is perfect. The breeze is gentle. The air smells like citrus and hope. It feels curated, almost suspiciously pleasant, which, after the ledger's warning, just screamed trap. Orange walked at my side through the upper terraces of Veridel, where bridges of woven bark arched across open air. Below, the city hummed with energy. Vendors shouting, musicians playing flutes carved from living wood, acrobats leaping between branches. Cirrus and the Cedar Gate delegation were housed in secure guest quarters. Only, not everyone was safe. As Orange and I crossed a narrow bridge toward the festival grounds, a merchant carrying garlands of red blossoms brushed past us. He smiled warmly, too warmly. My stomach tightened. He kept walking, but his pupils were white. No iris, no emotion. Hollowed in the summer court. Orange stiffened, a low growl barely audible. I reached for my spear, but the merchant vanished into the crowd like a stone dropped into river water. A chill slid under my ribs. The Queen hadn't been kidding. The rot was already inside. The Festival of Bloom. The Festival of Bloom was theatrical magic. Hundreds of people filled the plaza, dancers moving like petals in the wind, fruit stands overflowing with colours I'd never seen, fountains spraying mist that glittered in the sun. Children tied ribbons to Orange's tail until he looked like a parade float. He tolerated it with infinite wolf patience. For a moment, I almost forgot the danger. Then the ledger warmed. Not glowing, not urgent, just aware. The Summer Queen stood on a balcony above the plaza, watching from behind a veil of drifting flowers. When she spoke, the crowd fell silent. Veridel welcomes Cedar Gate, she announced, her voice music made of authority. We welcome the Warden, bearer of the ledger of the first seed. Hundreds of eyes turned to me. I tried to stand tall. Orange sat beside me like a statue carved from myth. And we welcome peace, the Queen continued. May the Festival of Bloom remind us that growth does not end with harvest. Applause thundered. Vendors tossed flower petals into the air. Dancers spun in bright bursts of colour. Then, as the dancers reached the centre of the plaza, the ground pulsed. Not music, roots. The ledger snapped open at my belt. Move! Orange lunged, shoving me sideways as black tendrils erupted beneath the dancers' feet. Screams shattered the music. The petals hanging in the air turned grey, falling like dead ash. The queen shouted a command. Guards sprinted toward us, spears drawn. But the hollow root had planned for spectacle. The vines didn't grab civilians. They formed a circle, blocking exits, isolating the performers. And from the centre, something climbed through the cracked stone. A figure, tall, thin. Skin like pale bark stretched too tight over bones. Mask carved from root and bone. Hollow white eyes. A priest of the severed court. The seedling without roots. His voice echoed through the plaza, not loud, but powerful enough to silence every breath. Behold the warden, every head turned. Behold the false shepherd, the puppet of dying trees. I stepped forward, spear ready. You really like dramatic entrances, don't you? Is there a pamphlet I missed? The priest tilted his head. You have taken the seed into your flesh. You have tasted its power. And now, you starve. He wasn't wrong. The shard remnant was dim, and I hadn't dared risk another memory sacrifice. Leave these people out of this. The priest spread his arms. But they are part of this. They lived on borrowed soil, borrowed water, borrowed sunlight, all gifts of the first forest. Now we reclaim what belongs to us. He stepped toward the dancers, paralyzed by roots holding them in place. Orange growled, low and murderous. I lifted my spear, feeling it heavy in my hands. The power I earned without cost in the seed road hadn't been tested in true combat. The priest saw my hesitation and laughed softly. You are unfinished, Warden. A seedling without roots. The ledger burned hot, pain hot, against my hip. ROOT. I dropped my spear and slammed my palm against the stone floor. Not power borrowed, not power sacrificed. My power. The earth listened. Roots burst upward, not black, but green and gold, alive and furious. They wrapped around the black vines, strangling them, drinking their rot. The plaza shook. The priest staggered, mask cracking. You cannot command the root road, he hissed. It will consume you. Maybe, I said, voice shaking, but not before I ruin your day. The green roots surged, tearing the black tendrils apart, freeing the dancers, pushing the priest backward. He raised a hand, and 3 hollowed guards leapt from the crowd, masks clicking like jaws. Orange met the first midair, teeth ripping wood and bone. The second lunged at me, but I reached inward. The earth trembled. Stone cracked under my feet. A spire of root shot upward, flinging the hollowed guard into the sky before it shattered into dust. The crowd gasped. The queen's eyes widened, not at the magic, but at me. Roots coiled up my arm like a living gauntlet, green and gold, pulsing with life. No memory lost, no strength drained, just mine. The priest shrieked in fury. Impossible. Only the first seed. Oren slammed into him, breaking his mask, pinning him against the cracked stone. The priest thrashed, vine limbs flailing. I stepped close, roots tightening around my fist. The priest stared at me with hollow eyes. You cannot stop us. The dead road opens. The winter court falls. Winter. My heart hammered. What did you do to Winter? The priest laughed, blood and sap on his lips. We do not kill forests, Warden. We devour them. He dissolved, turning to a cloud of black spores that scattered into the wind. Silence crushed the plaza. Petals lay grey and dead around our feet. Dancers sobbed. Guards stood shaking. The queen stared down from her balcony, face pale but unbroken. She lifted her voice. The summer court stands with Cedargate and with the warden. Ready your spears, ready your bows. Winter calls for aid. The crowd roared, not joy, not fear. Purpose. The ledger wrote on its own cover, War begins. Orange stood beside me, fur bristled, breath heavy. I wasn't sure if I could save Winter, but for the first time, I believed I could try. Chapter 12. The Queen of Thorns. Every court hides a second court, the one that smiles when others bleed. The Ledger, Fragment 12. No parade followed the battle. The summer court didn't celebrate survival, it calculated it. Guards swept the plaza, clearing black ash and splintered vines. Healers rushed to the injured dancers. Servants washed away dead petals as if the festival had never happened. Orange padded at my side, fur streaked with dust. Guards steered wide around him, not afraid, but reverent. Like passing too close might invite judgment from the ancient forest. Cirrus and the Cedar Gate delegation met us beneath a lattice of flowering vines. She grabbed my arm. Winter Court. What did the priest mean? I don't know, I said. But it wasn't a bluff. They're moving fast. Her jaw tightened. Then we leave at first light. We might not get the chance. Because the Queen was coming. Not with an escort, but with an audience. The entire summer council swept into the plaza behind her. Nobles in velvet, mages in leaf-etched armor, diplomats whose perfumes were expensive enough to buy a house. When the Queen of Summer spoke, her voice didn't need volume to command silence. Ezra Haynes, Warden of the First Seed, step forward. I did. Orange stepped with me. That earned a ripple of anxiety from the nobles. The Queen faced the crowd, voice clear and steady. Today, the severed court attacked not a border fort, but a capital. They intended to strike fear into our hearts. They failed. She gestured to the broken stone. But we must be honest. This was not an army. This was a messenger. Nerves rippled through the court. The Queen turned to me fully. Warden, you command the Seed Road now. You fought without borrowing life. You used your own roots. You are no longer unclaimed. You are becoming. The ledger warmed at my hip, not from danger, but from cold, hard recognition. Lord Vale's challenge. Court politics, however, is never a one-voice performance. A man stepped from the council ranks, tall, lean, draped in gold-stitched silk that screamed too expensive to trust. Lord Vale. His smile was polite the way knives are sharp. Your Majesty, he said smoothly, the Warden's arrival is impressive, but we must consider the cost of involving ourselves in a war that is not ours. People murmured. Vale continued, louder. Summer has thrived for centuries by staying neutral. Why should we tie our fate to a stranger? A human who arrived from nowhere, whose magic we do not understand, wielding a relic we cannot control. His eyes slid to Orange. And a wolf who answers to no throne. Orange's lip curled. Vale lifted a hand, interrupting royalty in a way only someone stupid or powerful could. Cedar Gate may fall. Tragic, yes. But if we bind our strength to them, we invite the severed court's wrath. Why should Veridol bleed for their fight? Ceres took a step forward, eyes blazing. Because Cedar Gate stood as your shield for generations. Vale smirked. And what gratitude did you demand? None. That is the beauty of walls. They break so others don't have to. The crowd shifted, uncertain, afraid. Vale leaned toward me, voice silk-wrapped venom. Tell us, Warden, can you defend Veridol as you defended your forest? Can you promise we will not pay the price for your battles? He wanted me to say yes, because yes was a lie, and lies are easy to kill. I looked around, at nobles, guards, merchants, fear everywhere. Not of me, but of responsibility. So I didn't promise protection. I gave them truth. No, I said, I can't protect you. Gasps, whispers. Vile smiled like a man watching a trap close. I raised my voice, letting the anger settle in my tone. I can't protect an entire kingdom, or an entire court, or an entire world, not alone. I pointed toward the fallen stone. But that's exactly what the severed court wants. For every city to look at the fire and say, not my problem. For every border to close. Because fear is the best fertilizer for rot. Vale's smile slipped. I took a step forward. You want to survive this? Then stop pretending you can hide behind your perfect city while the rest of the world burns. I placed my palm on the stone. Green roots shimmered beneath the marble. The plaza's flowers lifted their heads, colour returning, and the ledger wrote on the stone for all to see. The seed road does not end at your gates. All roots meet beneath the earth. Stand or be buried. The words glowed bright as sunlight. Lord Vial paled. The Queen stepped forward and placed a hand over the writing, sealing it as royal decree. Then she turned to Vial. "Speak against the Warden again," she said quietly, "and you will speak from exile." The crowd erupted, not cheering, but deciding, turning, choosing. The Queen looked at me. "Prepare your wolves, Warden. The summer court marches with you." Orange bowed his head, and the ledger wrote its last line of the day. "The forest has found its shield. Now find its sword." Winter Court waited, and war was coming. Chapter 13. Fire on the Fields. War is not declared with horns. War is declared with fire. The Ledger, Fragment 13. Even with summer's pledge, we did not sleep. We gathered supplies. Loaded wagons, sharpened spears, checked water stores and every tiny detail that keeps an army alive. This wasn't fantasy. This was logistics. And bad logistics meant people died. By dawn, the summer court was a machine in motion. Orange rested beside the gates, calm but watchful. I sat near him, rubbing sleep from my eyes and trying not to look like someone who learned how to lead by reading a mysterious, demanding bark book. Mara burst out of the archive tower, clutching 3 scrolls and wearing the face of a woman who'd forgotten how blinking worked. Ceres intercepted her before she could shatter all her bones on the stairs. "Breathe, Mara. Use words." Mara shoved a scroll into my hands. "These are first-age documents. Pre-courts. They describe the seed roads, not just the main passage under Cedar Gate, but branches. Smaller pathways between courts." "Hidden travel routes," Ceres translated. "More than travel routes," Mara said, shaking. "Living conduits. A warden can open them. If you can command the routes," she added, looking at me with frantic hope. "Like teleportation?" I asked. Oren's huffed, offended that sacred magic would be compared to human convenience. Mara continued, breathless. "If we find the branching sigils, if you touch them with the seed, we could reach Wintercourt by route path. Hours, not weeks." Ceres's eyes widened. "If that's true..." A horn blast cut her off. 1, 2, 3. Not an alarm. A summons. We ran to the courtyard walls. The living fire. The world outside Cedar Gate was on fire. Flames rolled across the fields like waves, red and black, but wrong. Fire that clung to the ground instead of climbing. Fire that moved. At first I thought it was wind-driven. Then the fire turned. It followed the rows of wheat. Dallin cursed behind us. "Fire shouldn't move that way. It's too coordinated." Ceres spoke through gritted teeth. "It's chasing the roots." They set the crops alight from underneath. Mara's voice broke. "That's the winter grain. The city's food for the coming year." Guards scrambled along the walls. Farmers tried to douse flames with buckets, but water splashed off uselessly. The fire didn't hiss. It crackled, like bones breaking. Orange growled so deep the ground vibrated. The ledger snapped open at my hip. "The fire is not fire. It is fungus. It eats green, not heat." Ceres grabbed a horn from a guard and shouted, "Stop throwing water! Wet the earth, churn the soil, cut the roots." Runners sprinted to obey, but it wasn't enough. Fire raced toward an irrigation ditch, toward the orchard, toward the city. If the orchard burned, Cedar Gate was 1 winter away from mass graves. I looked at the ledger. "What do we do? We don't have time." Ink spread fast. "Plant. Call them." I felt something stir beneath us. Roots. Living. Waiting. Listening. I shoved my palm into the dirt. Heat burned my skin. Smoke filled my lungs, but the seed road inside me woke. Not a gentle rise, a roar. Green fire burst from my chest, poured down my arm, and into the soil. The ground shook. Cracks spread like veins. Then the roots answered. They erupted through the earth like a tide. Hundreds, thousands, surging under the burning wheat, choking the fungus fire at its source. The flames screamed. People froze, staring. Even Sarah stopped breathing. Orange pressed his forehead to my shoulder, steadying me as the ground bucked. And the roots drank the fire. Not smothered it, ate it. Black fungus shriveled into dust. Flames gutted out. The fields, scarred but alive, stopped burning. Ceres exhaled. This is why they want you dead. You just invented a botanical fire extinguisher powered by existential dread. The ledger glowed faint green and wrote across its cover, "Fire is a message. They are done whispering." A runner stumbled into the courtyard, breathless. "Commander!" A rider, South Road, urgent dispatch from the Summer Queen. Ceres tore the seal, read and swore, the sound raw and final. Orange lifted his head. "What?" I asked. Ceres handed me the message. 6 words. Winter Court has fallen. The dead road is open. My blood turned to stone. The certainty of the attack had been theoretical. This was reality. Ceres turned to the guards. "Prepare the wagons." She looked at me. "Warden, we ride for Winter Court." The ledger wrote one final line, heavy with prophecy. The first tree is dying. We were out of time. Chapter 14. The Shattered Grove. Winter remembers every wound, and it carves them in ice. The ledger, fragment 14. We left Cedar Gate before dawn, long before the stars finished dying out of the sky. No horns, no fanfare, just wheels creaking under loaded carts and boots crunching frost-hard ground. Orange walked ahead of us, pacing like a general inspecting the road for ambush. His breath steamed in long white ribbons. He felt the winter courts fall in his bones. His posture was taut, resigned. The road north changed faster than I expected. Grass thinned. Trees stood farther apart, coated in ice-thin bark that crackled beneath the slightest touch. Frost didn't melt under sunlight. The wind blew with a voice, something between weeping and warning. It wasn't just winter. It was morning. After 2 days, we reached the edge of the Shattered Grove, a forest of white-bark pines and silver oaks that seemed carved out of moonlight. Mara walked close behind me, clutching her notes. The Winter Court shouldn't fall this quickly. Their root works go deep, deeper than summer's. They should have had time to evacuate. Ceres rode beside us, voice low. Unless someone inside helped the severed court open the dead road. I didn't miss the way her eyes flicked to every stranger we passed on the frozen road. Traders could look like anyone. The first dead. We found the first bodies at sundown. Not soldiers. Civilians. Frozen where they fell, faces pale blue, expressions peaceful, like they'd fallen asleep and never woken. Villagers wrapped in winter cloaks. Children curled against parents. Their skin was smooth, unmarked. "It isn't cold that killed them," Grella whispered, staring at the scene. She was right. The ledger pulsed, writing faint letters across the bark. Their roots were cut. Their trees were silenced. Ceres stared at the bodies too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was iron scraped thin. "We bury them. We don't leave winter's dead to rot in ice." Darlene and half the caravan dug shallow graves with shaking hands. Oren stood guard, unmoving, watching the tree line like something ancient and angry. I knelt beside a young boy, maybe 8, his hand frozen around a carved wooden toy, a wolf, painted blue. His eyes stared at the sky. My chest tightened. The shard remnant at my belt warmed. "Number." "Not this time," I whispered. I wouldn't pay the price for the dead. The ledger didn't respond, but the boy's toy pulsed, faint blue light glowing beneath frost. Orange patted closer, lowered his muzzle to the toy, and breathed. Frost melted. The boy's hand opened. The ledger wrote, "Winter will not be forgotten." We moved on. No one spoke. The survivors of Snowmeat. By mid-morning, smoke rose in the distance, thin, white, weak. Not wildfire, cooking fires, or funeral pyres. We approached a small village nestled between frozen pines. At the centre, a group of survivors huddled around a flickering hearth. When they spotted Orange, every face went pale. One woman dropped to her knees, sobbing, "The winter wolf lives!" A man, tall, wrapped in a cloak of frostbear fur, stepped forward. His beard was braided with silver wire, his eyes sharp blue. A warrior, but exhausted. "I am Captain Rusk of Winter Court's Silent Guard," he said. "If you bring harm, we'll die fighting. If you bring aid, we'll die thanking you." Ceres dismounted. "We're here for both." Rusk's gaze shifted to me and the ledger. Recognition, fear, and a flicker of hope so fragile it hurt to see. Warden. He bowed, not deep, but real. "The dead road opened 3 nights ago," Rusk said. Black bark cracked the roots beneath Frosthall. The palace fell in hours. Mara whispered, horrified. "Frosthall was built on living glacier stone. It should have lasted months." "It didn't," Rusk's voice broke. "King Arvin tried to hold the dead road shut long enough for the people to run. He didn't make it." I swallowed. "How many escaped?" "We think fewer than 1,000. Rusk looked out across the ice fields. "The Hollow Priests didn't want prisoners. They wanted silence." He pointed north, toward a field of shattered white trees. "They're still there, harvesting the living." A chill crawled down my spine. Harvesting. The ledger wrote, "The dead road feeds. They take winter's roots to breed more hollow." Ceres's hand tightened on her spear. "We stopped them." Rusk shook his head. "We tried. Every warrior we sent into that wood never returned." Orange growled, low, angry, resigned. He stepped past Rusk toward the broken forest, tail raised high. Ceres turned to me. "Ezra, what do you see?" I stepped forward and felt it. Not with eyes, with roots. The seed road stretched beneath us, twisted, broken, torn from its anchor. Pieces of winter's magic drifted like dying breath in the frozen soil. And something else pulsed beneath the ice. A heart. Alive. Barely. "I feel someone," I whispered. "Someone strong." Rusk's breath caught. "The Queen? I can try to reach her." The ledger's pages flipped fast, ink drawing a sigil, a knot of 3 branches bound in a circle. "Mark the route. Call the road. Winter will answer." Ceres took command instantly. "Darlin, guards form perimeter. Mara, find anyone who can carry a weapon. Grella, triage the wounded. Ezra." Orange pressed his forehead to mine, sharing a pulse of raw, cold magic. Winter magic, deep and ancient. Then Rusk touched my shoulder. "If she lives, she will know you saved her people." It was a plea. I knelt on the frost, placed my palm against the frozen earth, and whispered, "Open." The ground split. A seam of blue-white light cracked the ice. Frost melted. Roots awakened, silver and sharp as crystal. A pathway descended into darkness. Orange leapt first. I followed. Ceres followed me. Captain Rusk followed her. The world above sealed shut, leaving only the glow of the roots beneath our feet. The ledger wrote, glowing in the dark, "The Queen of Winter lives, and she is not alone." We went to find her, and whatever waited with her. Chapter 15. The Frozen Throne Below. Power buries itself in the cold because the cold remembers. The Ledger, Fragment 15. The seed road beneath winter wasn't like Cedar Gate's warm earth tunnels or summer's living marble. This was a frozen artery, walls of blue-white ice that pulsed faintly with veins of silver root. The air didn't just feel cold. It felt silent, heavy, as if sound itself froze mid-breath. This was the raw, ancient cold of the north, amplified by magic. Orange pattered ahead, breath steaming in slow, controlled exhales. Even he stepped lightly, his bulk moving with unnerving caution. Ceres walked behind me, spear lowered, eyes scanning the tunnel for movement. Captain Rusk sealed our rear, torch raised, frost forming on his beard. "Are you sure this road is stable, Warden?" Ceres asked, her voice tight. "No," I admitted. "Not even a little. The ledger just says, 'Winter will answer,' which is a horrifyingly vague customer service guarantee." She nodded. "Good. At least disaster won't surprise us." The further we walked, the louder something became. A pulsing, rhythmic throb coming from everywhere and nowhere. A heartbeat beneath the ice. The ledger warmed in my hand, its warning grave. The root of winter still lives, but it freezes. And when roots freeze, ice learns to hate. Oren's suddenly stopped, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern, large enough to house a castle hall. Icicles hung from the ceiling like swords. The walls glimmered with ancient carvings. Wolves, stags, forests under auroras. And at the center, a frozen throne. Not carved, grown. Crystallized roots spiraling upward, coated in glacial white. A woman lay slumped in it. Her skin was pale as snow. Her hair fell in silver braids. Her eyes were closed. Captain Rusk dropped to his knees, torch falling soundless on the frost. "Your Majesty?" Ceres whispered. "Is she alive?" I stepped toward the throne, and the shard remnant at my belt pulsed weakly, reacting to her presence. I reached out and touched her hand. Warm, not warm like flesh. Warm like magic. She gasped, sudden and ragged, and her eyes snapped open, ice blue irises glowing like stars. The Winter Queen was not dead. She was binding herself to the ice, holding the court's last heartbeat together by force of will alone. The seed's anchor. Rusk rushed to support her, tears freezing on his lashes. "My queen." She shook her head, voice cracking through dry lips. "Not queen. Not anymore." Her eyes landed on Oren's first, softening in reverence. Then she saw me. Not just saw, recognized. "You," she whispered, breath frosting the air. "The seed chose you." "I didn't choose it," I replied. "No one ever does." Her hand tightened on mine, strength gathering like ice, reforming around cracks. They thought killing me would break Winter Court. They forgot who I was. Ceres glanced around the chamber. "Where are your people? Your guard?" The Queen's jaw clenched. "Those who fought with me are gone. Those who survived are hidden. The severed court took our roots, but not our crown." She looked at the throne. The crystallized roots embedded in her back pulsed faintly. They wanted access to the winter seed. I sealed it in myself. My stomach dropped. "You put the seed in your body?" Her chin lifted. "If they want it, they have to kill me." Rusk's voice shook. "We will get you out." "No." She pointed to Oren's. "The first wolf knows. The dead road is not here for winter. It is here for him." Oren's ears flattened. A growl rumbled like an avalanche. The Queen's gaze slid to me, cold, piercing, unbearably sad. "You think this war is about the seed? About power? No." She pressed her hand to my chest, over my heart. "This war is about you." I stared at her, stunned. "Why me? I'm nobody." "That is why," she said softly. "You arrived without a past, without history, without roots. The Hollow Priests want a warden who belongs to no court. Someone they can carve into anything they wish. Someone whose memories can be taken without consequence." "They want to hollow you," Ceres whispered. The Queen nodded. "And once you are theirs, the seed is theirs." The cavern groaned. Cracks spidered across the ice ceiling. "We cannot stay," Rusk said. "Your Majesty, We have to move. The Queen looked at me, eyes blazing like winter's heart. You opened the root road. You can open another. Take me away from here. The seed road answers to those who protect, not those who destroy. I looked at the ledger. Its pages fluttered. Mark the Queen. Mark yourself. Mark the wolf. And call winter's root. Ceres, I shouted. Get close. She grabbed my arm. Orange pressed against my side. I pressed my hand to the Queen's shoulder. The cavern shuddered. Ice cracked. The dead road was waking. I reached inward, past fear, past exhaustion, past doubt, toward that new root of magic growing inside me. Open. Light burst from the frozen ground. Blue-white, blinding and cold. Roots writhed upward, wrapping around us like vines of living ice, moving us. The cavern exploded in cracking crystal behind us as a roar of hollow priests pierced the darkness. We vanished before their blades touched the air. We landed hard. Snow whipped across my face. We were on a cliff overlooking a frozen valley. And below us, an army. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of hollowed beasts and corrupted trees, marching toward the summer court. Ceres stared in horror. If that reaches Veridol, they'll burn summer the way they froze winter, I whispered. The Queen steadied herself on Orange's fur. Her voice was a blade made of frost. The severed court does not want a kingdom. They want the world. The ledger wrote across its cover, symbols glowing through snow. You saved the Winter Queen. Now save the living. We had no army. We had no time. Just a wolf, a queen, a soldier, a woman with scrolls, and a warden growing roots for the first time. War wasn't coming. War was here. Chapter 16. The Hunt for the Severed Crown. A crown can rule a kingdom. A broken crown can unmake one. The Ledger, Fragment 16. We had no map, but the Winter Queen didn't need one. She walked the cliff edge with slow, deliberate steps, breathing like she tasted secrets in the air. Even exhausted and half frozen, she moved like royalty, not because of pride, but because winter itself bent to her presence. Captain Rusk stayed close. Ceres scanned the valley below, spear tight in her grip. Orange prowled, hackles raised, staring down at the marching horror below. A forest of blackened trees walked like soldiers. Hollowed wolves stalked beside them. And at the heart of the horde was a figure taller than any human, wearing a crown of twisted bark, the same bone-white wood as the hollow masks. The severed crown. Even from this distance, the air soured around it. The Winter Queen's voice was barely a whisper. The severed crown was corrupted from a living throne. Once, it belonged to a god of the first forest. They killed it, hollowed its body, and forged a crown from its bones. Mara nearly choked. They killed a forest god? No, the Queen said. Not killed. Drained, twisted, broken until it forgot itself. It was the same thing they intended for Ezra. Can we kill that thing? I asked. Orange huffed. The Queen shook her head. You cannot kill a crown. But you can break who wears it. The wind changed. The army below halted. The severed crown turned, sensing something, knowing someone was watching. The Queen's voice sharpened. We move. Now. The shadow in the snow. We retreated from the cliff, heading into a narrow ravine where the wind cut like knives. We travelled fast, but danger travelled faster. By nightfall, snow fell in thick, silent sheets. Orange stopped repeatedly, tail stiff, ears twitching. Something followed us. Not beasts, not priests. Something human. When we finally found shelter, a hollow beneath an ancient pine split by lightning, Ceres ordered a watch. Rusk stayed with the Queen, and Orange curled against the opening, a living barrier. The ledger pulsed, pages glowing faint blue. Winter cracks under weight. The ice hides the shadow. You are not alone. A twig snapped outside. Orange's head lifted. Ceres reached for her spear. We froze as a figure stepped out of the snowfall, cloak white as frost. A woman, hood drawn low. Her footsteps made no sound. She spoke. Her voice was soft as falling snow, but wrong, hollow. "We found you." Oren's launched at her. Before his claws struck, the woman's skin tore open, revealing vines beneath. Hollowed. Sarah stabbed her, but vines kept growing, grabbing the spear. Rusk roared, severing the hollow's arms. It didn't scream, it only whispered, "The crown wants the Warden." Then it collapsed into a puddle of black ash. Cirrus wiped her blade, breathing hard. "How did it follow us?" "We used the seed road." The Queen pressed trembling fingers to the frozen wall, whispering a spell too soft for human ears. "Someone travelling with us carries a mark," she said. "The severed court is tracking it." Rusk shook his head. "Impossible." They were unarmed, terrified. "A mark needs only fear to grow," the Queen said, voice tight. Mara looked sick. Someone left Winter, but Winter didn't leave them. Silence hit like a hammer. We had a spy among the survivors, and they might not even know it. The price of the mark. We returned to the refugee camp of Snowmeat under cover of night. The Queen knelt, pressing her palm into the snow. Frost bloomed outward in a perfect circle. Glowing threads of ice snaked toward the camp. Except one thread, black, spreading like ink. It led to a small cottage. Inside, we found a woman cradling a sleeping child. She wasn't hollowed. She was terrified. The mark pulsed across the child's chest like frostbite. A black root, buried under skin. Rusk's face crumpled. "What did they make you do?" She sobbed. "I didn't lead them. I swear. They just knew. Every time I breathed, I felt something listening." The Queen touched the child's forehead. "He has been marked by their magic. A parasite that feeds on fear and blood." "Can we remove it?" I asked. "For a price," the Queen said. "The mark is bound to the boy's life. Remove it, and his heart will stop." "I won't let him die," I said. The Queen nodded slowly. "There is a way, but it is forbidden. It uses the winter seed itself." "I'll take that risk," I said. "Just tell me what to do." The Queen stepped close. "Put your hand on his chest." I did. The Queen placed her own hand over mine. Winter magic surged through her fingers, into mine, into the child. Pain lanced my arm, frost burning from the inside. The Queen whispered, "Bind the rot, call the root, give breath, take none." Ice-white roots burst from the floor, wrapping the child, then me. My blood turned to ice. Cirrus shouted my name. I pushed magic forward. Roots of light tore the mark free, a slithering black branch that shrieked without sound. The boy arched, eyes open, glowing white. Then the mark snapped, dissolving into ash. The pain vanished. The child blinked, breathing lightly, alive. I searched myself, mind, memory, breath. Nothing missing, nothing taken. For the first time. The Queen smiled weakly. "You are not just borrowing power anymore. You are becoming it." The ledger wrote across its pages. "The North knows your name now. The hunt has begun. Not a hunt for us, a hunt with us." Chapter 17. The Wolves of Wintermarch. Wolves do not follow kings. Wolves follow purpose. The ledger, fragment 17. The night after saving the boy, everything changed. We were no longer prey. We were the hunters. Orange led us through the frozen pines, nose to the wind, paws silent over snow that swallowed every sound. Behind him marched a dozen wolves, not hollowed, true winter wolves. Their coats shimmered silver and white, eyes bright as stars. They moved around me with a reverence I didn't entirely understand. Maybe not for me, but for the seed I carried, and the impossible thing I had done. All I felt was a knot of fear and grim determination holding hands in my chest. I had power without cost now, but that just meant the stakes were higher. not easier. Ceres walked beside me, spear lowered, posture loose but ready. Rusk marched behind, axe slung across his back, the rage and vengeance for his fallen king barely contained. Mara stayed behind with the refugees and the Winter Queen, diligently recording everything in frantic ink. After an hour, Oren stopped in the shadow of a ridge. The valley below glowed with faint, sickly light. A cluster of hollow priests surrounding a giant black tree. No leaves, no fruit. Just a trunk weeping dark liquid into the snow. Root Forge, a corruption site. Ceres inhaled sharply. They're using winter's trees to breed hollowed soldiers. They'll make more every hour. Rusk's hands tightened on his axe. My father's orchard stood there. I felt something cold ignite inside my chest. Not winter, not fear, purpose. The wolves of Wintermarch did not die, so we could watch this, Rusk said, voice shaking. Ceres nodded. Then we make our stand. But Orange didn't move toward the enemy. He turned to me, expecting something. The ledger warmed at my hip. Command. I blinked. What? Now is not the time for cryptic advice. You are not a tree. You are not a weapon. You are a warden. Command. I looked at Oren's, at the wolves. They weren't waiting to follow orders. They were waiting to see who I would become. This was the test of authority. I stepped forward, breath fogging the air. We hit Rootforge first, I said, voice steadying. If we cut the roots, the priests lose their army. But we don't charge. We sneak in. Quiet, fast. Wolves hit from the sides, create a distraction. Rusk, Ceres, with me, straight to the tree. Ceres smirked. Look at you. Giving orders. I'm pretending I know what I'm doing. It's different, I deadpanned. Rusk grinned, something alive again in his eyes. It's enough! Orange barked once, sharp, commanding. The other wolves vanished into the snow like ghosts. The Warden wakes. We moved down the ridge in silence, hugging the shadows. The corruption tree loomed ahead. One priest turned, white eyes scanning the dark. We froze. He sniffed once, sensing wrongness. Then a silver wolf exploded from the snow and tore him down. No sound, but one wet crack of bone. The battle ignited. Wolves ripped through the ranks, swift and brutal. Ceres and Rusk charged with me straight toward the root trunk. The priests hissed, vines bursting from their arms, whipping through the air like barbed whips. A vine snagged Ceres's arm, ripping blood across her sleeve. She tore free and stabbed hard. Rusk split a hollowed stag in half, but more kept coming. Vines wrapped around my ankle and dragged me hard, slamming my back into the snow. A priest loomed over me, mask splitting open to reveal black root teeth. He hissed, "You are the seed's weakness." My pulse spiked. Fear, real and choking, clamped down. Orange tackled the priest, crushing his mask. He looked through me then, demanding, "Are you choosing life, or waiting for someone to save you again?" Something inside me cracked. I stood, not with borrowed magic, with will. I slammed my palm into the ground. This time, the seed road didn't roar. It whispered. Roots rose from the earth, silent, thin, sharp as needles. They pierced the snow, struck the priest's ankles, wrapped their legs, and held, not growing wild, obeying. Ceres stared in shock. "Ezra, you can command the root without erupting the ground." "I guess I can," I said, trembling. Rusk let out a bark of laughter. "By the gods! The Warden wakes!" The priests shrieked, struggling against the roots. I raised my spear and hesitated. Not because they were human once, but because killing still felt like losing something. The ledger flared. Compassion is a root. Mercy is a blade. Choose. A priest tore free, vines whipping toward Ceres's throat. I moved without thinking. My spear cut cleanly, severing mask from skull. The hollowed body collapsed. No blood, no scream, just silence. You didn't kill a person, Ceres said softly, touching my shoulder. You freed one. More priests fell. The corruption tree trembled. I stepped forward, roots moving aside to let me pass. I pressed my hand to the black trunk. Rot crawled beneath its bark. The shard remnant warmed, weak, spent. The seed road inside me stirred. I spoke the word the ledger had taught. Break. A burst of green-white light shot from my palm, roots tearing upward through the frozen earth, splitting the trunk, ripping the black rot into pieces. The tree screamed. It fell apart in a storm of ash and broken bark. Every hollowed creature in the valley froze, then collapsed, lifeless. Silence. Just wolves. Just breath. Just the living. Oren sat beside me, pressing his head into my shoulder. The ledger opened, pages glowing with frost magic and root magic intertwined. The Warden is killed. The root road knows you. The winter wolves follow. I felt the weight of my first kill settle like winter snow, but with it came responsibility. Rusk stood and placed a hand over his heart. Ezra Haynes, he said, voice carrying like a vow. You are not just Cedar Gate's warden. You are Winter's now too. Wolves howled, long and low, across the frozen field, answering the call. And the ledger wrote one final line. Follow the howl. The crown is moving. War was no longer coming. We were chasing it. Chapter 18. The Crownless Path. Betrayal blooms, where fear takes root. The ledger, fragment 18. We burned the black tree's ashes before sunrise. Rusk insisted. Winter warriors burned their dead, even if those dead wore vines and hollow masks. He watched the flames with a clenched jaw and a heartbroken kind of fury. When the last coal died, he looked at me. Rootforge is gone, but that was one branch. The crown grows more. We're not stopping at one, Ceres said. We're going after the head. Oren's huffed in agreement. The Winter Queen, pale but steady after her long sleep in ice, sat wrapped in a cloak of snow fox fur. We travel the crownless path, she said. Rusk stiffened. Your Majesty, that road was sealed generations ago. It was made for one purpose. To kill gods, the Queen whispered. The crown was made from one, she said. It carries divine memory. It will not break from mortal steel. Her fingers brushed the ice at her feet, and it cracked open, revealing a shallow bowl carved from pure frost stone. A seed basin. If Ezra learns to command root without touch at a distance, he may... Hold up, I said. Root without touch? Now? The ledger warmed. The Warden learns to speak so roots listen. Ceres looked around the frozen clearing. Is now really the time to experiment? The Crown's army is moving. It's the only time, the Queen said, voice thin but certain. If the Warden cannot command the forest at distance, he cannot strike the Crown. And if he cannot strike the Crown, the world ends. The lesson of purpose. Orens sat across from the basin. The other wolves ringed us in a loose half-circle. Ceres and Rusk stood guard. The Queen motioned. Kneel. Place your hand in the basin. The frost stone was freezing. It burned. Now take your hand away. Trust the root. I lifted my hand. Blue light clung to my skin, faint and flickering. Now, she said, call the nearest tree. I stared at a pine 10 paces away. I expected a whisper, a roar. I felt nothing. The Queen placed her hand on my shoulder, heavy, cold as glacier ice. You do not call a tree with power. You call it with purpose. Why do you want it to move? I stared at the pine. Ice weighed its branches down. It was suffering. Because it's carrying too much, I whispered. It's breaking. The Queen leaned close. Then help it stand. Something shifted. Not in the world, but in me. The frost threads under my skin tightened, pulling outward like invisible roots. The pine straightened, slow, quiet, but real. The ice on its branches cracked and fell. The Queen smiled faintly. Now you begin. But we didn't get to celebrate. Footsteps crunched in the snow. From the tree line, a winter survivor stumbled forward. A teenage boy, pale, shaking. "Help!" he gasped. "Please, someone help, they're coming." Cirrus ran to him. "Who's coming?" A shape burst from the trees, a hollowed beast, massive and fast. Cirrus shoved the boy behind her, and Rusk threw himself into its path, axe slamming down, cleaving bark flesh and bone vine. The beast collapsed, but more poured from the trees, wolves and deer and humans twisted by roots. The winter wolves formed a wall in front of us, snarling. I reached for the ground, but magic answered too slowly. The ledger wrote, desperate and sharp, "The mark returns. Fear is root. Someone betrays you." I spun. The teenage boy Cirrus had saved was sprinting toward the Queen with a knife grown from bone. He wasn't a survivor. He was marked. Orange tackled him mid-lunge, pinning him into the snow. The boy's face tore open into vines. Hollowed. Rusk swung his axe, but the boy dissolved into black spores. The Queen clutched her chest, gasping. They marked him before we ever found Snowmeat. He has been leading them to us. The ledger flared blindingly bright. The crown comes. The dead road opens. Run or burn. The sacrifice on the road. From the trees, the massive shape of the severed crown stepped forward, taller than any human, cloaked in shadows and snow. "Warden, come to the dead road, or everyone dies." Orange snarled, stepping in front of me. The crown only waited, letting terror do the work. Cirrus whispered, "Ezra, we don't have time. The Queen can't run." The ledger pulsed like a heartbeat in my palm. Command, not with power, with purpose. I pressed my hand to the snow. "Stand!" The ground shook. The frost cracked. Tens of thousands of roots answered, bursting upward in a wall of green and silver, weaving into a shield of living wood and ice around us. The crown stared. The ledger wrote, "Now run." Cirrus dragged the Queen onto Orange's back. Rusk hefted Mara under one arm. I carved open a seed road with both hands pressed to the snow. Light split the ice. We vanished into the roots just as the crown shattered the barrier behind us. The path collapsed. We landed hard, snow whipping across my face. "Rusk?" Cirrus spun, scanning the white expanse. A scream pierced the air. 100 yards behind us, the seed road fissure was still closing, and Rusk was half through it, a hand of black bark wrapped around his leg, dragging him back. A hollow priest leaned through the doorway. Rusk severed the grasping limb with his axe. He lunged forward, too late. A second limb lashed around his throat. Cirrus sprinted toward him, but Orange slammed into her, shoving her back, protecting her. Rusk locked eyes with me. "Warden, close it." "I can't." "You're still inside." My voice cracked. Rusk smiled, a warrior's smile. "You saved Winter's Queen. Let me save her people." The priest dragged him backward into the crack. Rusk reached out, not to be saved, to push us forward. I slammed my hand to the ice. The roots constricted. The fissure snapped shut. Rusk's scream cut off. Silence fell so sharp it seemed to bleed. The ledger wrote, "The first fallen does not fall for nothing. The road takes and gives, but you will remember his name." I swallowed hard. Rusk! Every wolf lifted their head and howled his name to the frozen world. The next fallen was closer to me. The war was getting personal, and the cost was climbing again. Chapter 19. Root and Bone. Roots remember the dead. Wolves remember the names of the fallen. The ledger, fragment 19. The seed road spat us out like a bone from a giant's throat. Light blazed, white, blinding. My ears rang. Snow and frost churned into open air. When I could finally see, we stood at the edge of a frozen lake. Orange shook frost from his fur. Cirrus groaned, rubbing her ribs. If you're going to do that again, warn me first. But someone was missing. Rusk? Sarah spun, scanning the white expanse. Where is... A scream pierced the air. 100 yards behind us, the Seed Road fissure was still closing, and Rusk's scream cut off. Silence fell so sharp it seemed to bleed. Ceres dropped to her knees, spear in the snow. She didn't cry. She didn't curse. She just breathed, ragged, uneven. "He saved us," Mara whispered, face pale. Orange lowered his head, pressing his muzzle into the snow. Wolves in the shadows howled once, long, mournful, endless. The ledger wrote, confirming the cost of that impossible exchange. The first fallen does not fall for nothing. The road takes and gives, but you will remember his name. I swallowed hard. Rusk! Every wolf lifted their head and howled his name to the frozen world. The first wolf's memory. We made camp beneath a cliff overhang as snow began to fall. Mara recorded the events with shaking hands. Ceres sharpened her spear, every scrape of stone against steel a silent vow of revenge. The Winter Queen sat wrapped in fur, breathing shallow. Her eyes were distant, not with grief alone, but memory. I sat beside Orange, fingers buried in his thick fur. "I should have stopped it," I whispered. "I should have pulled him through. I should have..." Orange nudged me sharply, forcing my eyes up. The Queen spoke, voice quiet as winter wind. "Do you know why wolves follow wardens?" I shook my head. "It is not loyalty. It is not fear. It is not command. Wolves follow those who root themselves in sacrifice." Her gaze met mine. "And wolves have known that longer than humans have existed." Mara set down her quill. "How long?" "Since the first forest," the Queen said. "Before humans, before courts, before crowns. Wolves were the heart of the seed." I blinked. "Orange isn't just a wolf?" "No," she said. "He is born of root and flesh, created by the first seed as guardians. He is the memory of all that came before." Orange looked at me then, deep, ancient, sad. The ledger flared, words carving themselves with reverence. "The first wolf is not beast. He is memory given pause, and he chose you." My throat tightened. "Why me?" "Because you are not strong," the Queen said softly. "You are afraid. You are flawed. You are human. The seed does not want a god. It wants someone who remembers pain." Cirrus exhaled, voice rough. "Rusk died for this war. What now?" The Queen lifted her hand, frost forming delicate patterns in the air. "Now, we hunt the crown." The severed crown's true goal. Mara unrolled one of her crumpled scrolls. If the crown doesn't care about land or courts or armies, then what does it want? "Not want," the Queen corrected. "Need." She drew in the snow with a finger, 3 circles connected by a root. The first seed. The last seed. The hollowed seed. If the crown takes all 3, it will not just destroy the forest. Her eyes sharpened. It will replace it. Cirrus stiffened. With what? The Queen whispered the word like a curse. Obedience. A dead world that still walks. Orange bared his teeth. The ledger wrote, "The crown does not want you dead, it wants you empty. A warden without self." My heart stopped. "They want to hollow me," I said, "and through me hollow the seed." The Queen nodded. "A warden's body can carry the seed. Without spirit, without memory, it is a vessel." Cirrus stood and threw her spear into the snow so hard it stuck upright. "We're going to burn the crown out of winter, then out of summer, then out of the world." The ledger burned bright. The hunt begins. We slept too lightly, listening for footsteps in the snow, but my dreams weren't of hollow priests. They were of Rusk, his hand pushing me forward, his smile in the frost, and a warning spoken in a voice made of root and memory. The next fallen will be closer to you. Chapter 20. The Icebound Oath. A warden does not swear with words. A warden swears with roots. The Ledger, Fragment 20. We marched before dawn, when the cold was sharpest and the snow crunched like breaking glass. The Winter Queen could barely walk, but she refused to be carried. Rusk would have yelled at her to rest, but he was gone. Instead, Ceres did it for him, softly, angrily, like someone refusing to grieve by herself. The wolves led us through twisted pines to a white stone plateau overlooking a frozen river. Ruins lay half-buried beneath drifts, pillars carved with the symbol of a wolf swallowing a moon. The winter wolves slowed, tails low. Oryns stopped entirely. Something sacred was here. The Queen stepped forward, leaning on Oryns' shoulder. "This was our oath hall," she whispered, "where winter crowns its protectors. This is where the first wolves swore themselves to the seed, and where wardens swore themselves to the forest." I swallowed hard. "Why bring us here?" The Queen turned to me, frost glittering in her eyes. "You opened the seed road. You saved my people. You broke the crown's forge. You command root without killing yourself." She placed a hand over my heart. "You are Warden." "I'm just a guy who woke up in the woods," I mumbled. "And now," she said, voice like ice cracking, "you are the one the forest answers." She lifted her hand. The roots beneath the snow stirred, forming a circle of frost-white vines. Wolves sat around it, Oryns in front, silver eyes glowing. Ceres and Mara watched like people witnessing the end of one world and the beginning of another. I stepped into the circle. The Queen spoke a language that wasn't human. Short, sharp, ancient, built of wind and cold and memory. The wolves howled in chorus. When the Queen finished, she touched my forehead. Something inside me clicked, like a lock turning. Snap. Magic flared beneath my skin. Not painful, not burning. Growing. Root and ice intertwined through my veins, pulsing with my heartbeat. The Queen whispered, "Ezra Haynes. Winter names you Ward Knight." Oryns pressed his head to my chest, a deep rumble vibrating through me. The ledger lit in my hand, carving words faster than ink. Ward Knight of Winter, bearer of the shard, root walker, forest's shield, hollow's end. I wasn't sure I deserved any of it, but the forest believed I could become it. The crown's counter. An icy wind whipped across the plateau, scattering snow in spirals. Ceres stepped forward and knelt, one knee in frost, head bowed. "I stand with the Ward Knight." Her voice shook, but her hands were steady. Mara followed, ink-stained fingers trembling. "I record this truth. Winter is not dead. The Warden rises." The Winter Queen smiled. Thin, tired, proud. Even the wolves bowed their heads. For one breath, the war felt winnable. Then a horn blew. Cold, hollow, wrong. A scout sprinted across the snow, face grey with terror. "Commander, Ceres, the Crown's army is moving south. They're not attacking Winter. They're heading for Summer Court." Ceres swore. "They want the Summer Seed." Mara's voice cracked. "If they hollow Summer too?" "They'll corner the first seed," the Queen said. "Then the world dies." Oryns growled, low and furious. The ledger flared. "The dead road moves quickly. You must be faster." Ceres pulled her spear from the snow, eyes blazing. "We ride for Veridel." She turned to me, and something changed in her gaze. Not doubt, not caution, respect. "Ward Knight," she said, "lead us." I swallowed. "We take the wolves ahead. Scouts to the ridge. Mara, get the refugees moving south. We'll meet them at the river crossing." Oryns howled, long and wild. Wolves ran, we followed. Winter marched to war. The weaponized passed. Halfway down the ridge, As wolves sprinted ahead and soldiers rallied behind, something brushed my mind. A memory I shouldn't have. A voice from my old world. A woman's voice, soft, familiar, calling my name. Ezra. I staggered. Ceres grabbed my arm. What is it? The ledger burned. The hollow crown has found your root. Your old life is a door, and some doors should never open. I looked back at the snow-covered hills and felt something terrible. Someone from my old world was here, or coming, and if the severed court found them first... Ceres read my face. Ezra, what did you hear? I swallowed hard. Someone from before. Someone I knew. Mara paled. The crown is using memory as a weapon. The Winter Queen's voice turned to ice. They will use your past to hollow your soul. The ledger wrote, the next battle is not in the forest, it is in your mind. Oren's pressed close, teeth bared. Not a danger outside, but something stalking inside me. I tightened my grip on his fur. No, I whispered. They don't get to take that too. And we ran. Toward summer, toward war, toward whatever waited in the ashes of my old life. Chapter 21. When Summer Burns. Fire reveals the shape of what survives. The ledger, fragment 21. We ran through the night. Not marched, not travelled, ran. Oren's led the wolves in a silent silver and gold river across frozen ground, paws barely touching the snow. The Winter Queen rode on his back, gripping his fur, breath thin but determined. Ceres and I followed on wind-tired horses, hooves kicking up ice. The seed road stretched like a feeling beneath my feet, a sense of north and south, of pain and pressure, and a growing knot of dread. It was strongest when dawn broke. By morning, heat shimmered over the horizon. Winter was gone. Summer was burning. The white woods thinned into what was left of the golden fields. Smoke blackened the sky. Ash drifted across the road like dead snowflakes. Houses burned. Orchards smouldered. The wolves growled low, hackles rising. Ceres rode forward, jaw clenched. If Veridel falls... Her voice cracked. I finished for her. It's not falling today. Oren stopped, ears forward, body rigid. We saw movement, figures limping through smoke, traders, farmers, young mages, faces streaked with ash and tears. When they noticed the wolves, panic rippled through them. Ceres shouted, Hold! Warden escort! The refugees froze, recognized her crest, and collapsed in exhausted relief. A young girl stepped forward. The hollow came through the orchards. They burned everything. The Queen ordered an evacuation. Is she alive? Ceres demanded. The girl nodded shakily. She holds the high gate. But someone opened the city from inside. A traitor. Of course, Ceres cursed under her breath. The city of ash. We reached Veridel by noon. The summer court's golden trees were charred to black skeletons. The bridges of woven branch had burned to ash. The air stank of rot fire, the fungal blaze that ate root, not wood. We moved through the ruins like ghosts. Orens growled constantly. Low warning, constant threat. The ledger warmed in my palm. The crown walks these routes. The dead road spreads. We climbed the hill toward the high gate, finding chaos. Summer soldiers formed a shield wall against hollowed beasts crawling up the steps. Arrows hissed, spears shattered. People were dying. And in the middle of the fray, someone screamed my name. Not Ceres, not Mara, not anyone from this world. A voice from my past life. A woman's voice. My chest turned to stone. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I turned and saw her, standing in the courtyard, covered in soot, hair matted, eyes wild with terror. My sister, Ellie, from my world, from home, here. She ran toward me, sobbing, reaching for my arm. Ezra! Oh God, Ezra, what is this place? They told me, they showed me. I woke up in this nightmare. I couldn't breathe. My mind ripped in two. How are you here? I choked. She clung to me, shaking. I don't know. They pulled me into the forest. Said if I didn't obey, if I didn't tell them where you were. Cirrus stepped forward, spear ready. Ezra, who is this? My sister, I whispered. From my world. The Winter Queen's eyes turned sharp and distant. The severed crown didn't just track your soul. It tracked your blood. Ellie grabbed my shirt, voice breaking. Ezra, I'm sorry. I told them where you were. They made me. Something in her voice didn't shake. Something in her tone was too even. Orange lunged before I saw it. His teeth sank into her arm. Ellie screamed, but not like a human in pain. Her skin cracked. It wasn't skin. It was bark. Her face split into two halves, peeling apart like dead wood. Her eyes rolled white, and vines burst from her spine. Not my sister. A perfect imitation. A hollow effigy carved from memory. The weapon of grief. Cirrus swore and drove her spear through the thing's chest. But the effigy only laughed, voice glitching in and out. Would you kill her this clean? Warden? My heart shattered. The ledger wrote across my hand, glowing like lightning. This is not her. This is an invitation. The effigy leaned close, her voice turning low and hollow. They want you to break. I tore free, rage rising like wildfire. The roots at my feet trembled with raw, violent power ready to erupt. But a hand caught my arm. The Winter Queen. Do not let them hollow you with grief, she whispered. That is how the crown wins. I was shaking, every part of me screaming to destroy the thing wearing my sister's voice. The effigy's face cracked into a jagged grin. Follow the dead road, Ezra. We'll show you the real one. Orange ripped its throat out. Black spores burst into ash. The world went silent. Cirrus rested a hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I wiped my face with shaking fingers. She's alive. She has to be. They wouldn't waste that threat unless they wanted me to go after her. The ledger warmed. Quiet. Soft grief does not make you weak. It makes you dangerous. I stood, and for the first time since waking in this world, I hated. Not feared, hated. We're ending this, I whispered. Not tomorrow, not next month. Now. Orange lifted his head, eyes blazing silver and gold. Wolves howled across burning summer. And the ledger wrote, The dead road calls. Answer. Chapter 22. The Burning Gate. Fire tests the strength of wood. War tests the strength of hearts. The ledger, fragment 22. The high gate of Veridel was a barricade of living timber. Normally bright gold, it now glowed red, burning. Hollowed beasts slammed against the wood, claws carving scorch marks into bark. Summer defenders fought from behind the ramparts, but every volley barely slowed the tide. Cirrus looked at the chaos and breathed a single shaking word. Home. Orange barked once, sharp, commanding. Wolves sprinted ahead, tearing into the hollowed. But there were too many. The Queen of Summer stood atop the gate, cloak of blazing gold flickering like sunlight on fire. She hurled a flaming spear into the enemy ranks, exploding a dozen hollowed creatures to ash. But she was losing. We reached her as the wall began to buckle. Your Majesty, Cirrus shouted. We've brought the Warden. The Summer Queen whirled, eyes fierce, face streaked with ash. Her right arm was cut to the bone. Good, she growled. Then open the earth and swallow these bastards. I stepped forward. I can't open the seed road big enough to swallow an army. I can only... No time, she snapped. You're going to learn now? A hollowed bear smashed through the far gate. Wolves launched to intercept, but a vine whip swatted them aside. The Queen of Summer raised her spear, faltered, and fell to one knee. Cirrus caught her. Bleeding out, the Queen gasped. She pressed a shaking hand to my chest. You carry winter's blessing. Then borrow summer's fire. The ward night burns. Something hot and furious stirred under her palm. Her magic poured into me, bright, burning, wild, too much, too fast. Flame roared through my veins, my vision blurred into gold and white and screaming light. The ledger snapped open, burn or break. I stumbled backward, choking, every breath a furnace. Ceres grabbed my shoulder. Ezra, control it! I can't. Fire erupted from my palms, scorching the ground. The Summer Queen gasped. If he can't wield it, he'll explode. The burn became agony. I dropped to my knees. Ceres grabbed my face, forcing my eyes open. Ezra, look at me. Control it. Purpose first, power second. My purpose was not killing, not burning, protecting. I pressed my flaming hands into the earth and didn't order the fire to attack. I asked it to stand guard. Roots surged upward, but instead of ice, they were burning gold, branches laced with flame. They wove into a shield in front of the high gate, a living wall of fire and wood. The hollowed horde slammed into it and burned. I stayed standing. The power was mine. The final crack. A roar shook the sky. The severed crown stepped through the smoke, 20 feet tall, crowned in bone. The crown lifted a hand and the fire around us died, snuffed out like candlelight. The crown spoke into my mind. Your sister lives. If you follow the dead road, you will see her. If you do not, I will end her. Slowly. My knees buckled. Ceres shook me. Ezra, ignore it. I couldn't. The crystalline shard remnant at my belt cracked. Audibly. C-R-R-K. A hairline fracture split through the crystal. The ledger wrote in frantic black ink, Warden, stop, stop, stop. But grief tore through me like a blade. The fissure spread. The shard split into 3 jagged pieces, and the seed road inside me screamed. I felt roots being torn out by force. I collapsed, clutching my chest. The Winter Queen cried out, He's breaking! Orange lunged toward me, but the crown flicked a finger. A wave of black vines struck Orange's chest and hurled him across the courtyard. He hit a pillar and didn't rise. No! I crawled forward, but vines wrapped around my arms, pulling me toward the crown. Ceres charged, her spear shattering like glass. The crown backhanded her across the courtyard. The vines dragged me to the crown's feet. The bone mask lowered. I saw human eyes beneath it. A woman, young, wearing a crown of living bark. The Queen of Autumn, the traitor. She smiled. Found you. The vines tightened. The ledger wrote one final message before the vine blade struck. You are not done. You are not hollow. You are not alone. Then the world turned to black. The dead road. I woke on stone, cold, slick, not truly stone. Root, black, dead, and pulsing. My wrists were bound by roots. My magic wasn't gone, but it wasn't listening. The shard was silent. A voice spoke behind me, soft, warm, painfully familiar. Ezra. I turned. My sister stood a few paces away. Tears streaked her face. I almost believed it, until she blinked and the illusion peeled away. A hollow priest took her shape. Your grief is a doorway we walk through. I spat blood. You can wear her face, but you can't touch her. She's alive. I felt it. The priest leaned close. Why do you think you dreamed of her? We planted the memory. We fed it. A low growl echoed down the hallway. Orans. Somewhere in this nightmare, the first wolf hunted. The priest whispered, He will die here. Wolves cannot walk the dead road. They forget their names. I grinned, teeth bloody. You don't know him. The priest hissed and vanished into the bone walls. The ledger spoke in my skull. Do not move. The shard fractures. One more break and your magic is gone. Just one piece shattered? Yes, the winter shard. Lost to the crown. Part of me curled inward. Winter's power, ice, memory, endurance, gone. The ledger continued. They want to hollow you while you sleep. Stay awake. Stay yourself. I took a shaking breath. What do I do? You do not fight. You wait. The wolf is coming. A thunderous impact shook the wall. Orens howled, a deep, furious, primal sound. Chapter 23. Root break. Power is never lost. It only moves. The ledger. Fragment 24. White, not light, not snow, just white. I floated in nothing, breathless and weightless. No ground beneath my feet, no pain, no vines, no crown. Was I dead? The thought didn't frighten me. For the first time in days, there was no fear. A faint voice cracked the silence. Ezra. The ledger! Its tone was weak, strained like ink struggling to stay on a page. You broke the shard. The dead road lost its anchor. You fell. I exhaled, and my breath turned the white into frost. Shapes emerged, branches, roots, faint outlines of trees. A memory of a forest. The shard was killing me, I said. Yes, but it was also holding something back. The white peeled away, and I was standing in a field of black ash. No sky, no stars, just ash and the echo of wind that didn't exist. In the center of the wasteland sat Orens, unmoving. His fur was grey instead of silver. His flank no longer rose and fell. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. I collapsed beside him. No, 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 no. I pressed my ear against his chest. No heartbeat, no breath. Nothing. The ledger spoke, voice breaking. Power is never lost, Ezra. It only moves. Bring him back, I whispered. Please. He followed you too far into death. He walked where wolves do not return. I clenched my teeth, rage and grief twisting until I couldn't tell them apart. I won't leave him. You cannot stay. The dead road is gone. You are somewhere older, somewhere deeper. The ash blew away, revealing roots beneath my feet, ancient, pale, fossilized. This is what remains of the first forest. This is where all life began, and where it ends. The ledger's voice softened. Orens brought you here so you could live. I buried my hands in his fur. That was supposed to be me, not him. The last memory. A pulse of warmth touched my hand. I looked up. Orens's eyes blinked. Slow, weak, alive. But his breath was thin. His body barely moved. Half of him seemed made of dust. The ledger whispered, "He is not dead. Yet. But he is breaking." Orens nuzzled my hand weakly, trying to comfort me, even dying. A sound tore out of my throat. Grief, anger, something feral and human. I won't let you die. Do you hear me? I don't care what it costs. There is one way, but it will not feel like mercy. I swallowed. Tell me. A warden's life can root another. If you give him part of your mind, part of your memory, part of yourself, he will walk again. My voice cracked. And me? You will forget something, a piece of who you are, gone, forever. Orens's breathing slowed, one breath every 15 seconds. He was dying. I pressed my forehead to his and chose. Take it, I whispered. Take what you need. What memory will you give? I closed my eyes. My sister's face, her laugh, the pumpkin patch. If I let go of that, the hollow crown wins the psychological war. But then, a different memory surfaced. Small, quiet. My mother reading to me on a blanket in summer grass. Her voice warm, her hand on my hair. The smell of lemon soap and fresh-cut hay. Home. You are not losing her. You are giving her to him. I looked at Orens. If a wolf could carry a memory of love, then that love didn't die. I placed my hand on his chest. I give him summer. I give him sunlight. I give him her. The ledger flared. Root, bind, share. Light poured from my hand into Orange's body. Not magic, not power. Memory. His breath returned, deeper, smoother. Colour bled back into his fur, silver threads restoring where grey ash had settled. He opened his eyes, and they were not just silver, they glowed gold. Summer's gold. He licked my cheek once. Alive. The ledger whispered, "Power is never lost, it only moves," and something in me felt hollow, a memory missing. A voice I could almost hear but no longer picture. It hurt. It was worth it. Orange rose unsteadily and pressed his head under my hand. The dead road was gone. The first forest was silent. But we were alive. I wiped my face and stood. How do we get back? The ledger wrote, "Walk. The living roots remember you." A path of pale wood opened before us. Orange stepped forward. I followed. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. Chapter 24. Ash and Gold. When a memory dies, something grows in its place. Not always human. The ledger, fragment 25. The world returned all at once. Heat, smoke, screams. The smell of burning fruit and sap. Orange staggered out of a wall of living root, shoving his shoulder into the world of the living. I stumbled after him, boots hitting scorched earth hard enough to jolt pain back into my bones. For a second, no one noticed us. Then, someone screamed, "Warden!" Summer soldiers on the high gate turned, bloodied and soot-black. When they saw me standing beside Orange, a wolf glowing faint gold at the eyes, every spear dipped low. Ceres pushed through the crowd like she'd carve a path with her bare hands. Her face was streaked with ash. When she reached me, she didn't speak. She slammed her forehead into mine and held on, shaking. "You're alive," she whispered. "God's Ezra, you're alive." Then her eyes focused past me, on Orange. He shouldn't have been able to stand. His fur gleamed in firelight, no longer silver alone. Threads of pale gold streaked his chest and legs, faint but undeniable. Summer magic. Ceres stepped back slowly. "What did you do?" Before I answered, wolves poured from the cracked root wall behind us. Winter wolves and summer hounds running together. The Queen of Summer was carried down from the high gate by her guards, too weak to walk. When she saw Orange, she stopped breathing. Then she bowed her head. "A wolf of winter, wearing summer's gold. This is not supposed to be possible." "It wasn't," I said quietly. Ceres stared into my face, searching. "Something's wrong. I can see it." My mouth tasted like ash. Orange died buying me time. The dead road tried to take both of us. I dash. Words stopped. Because the next part should have been easy to say, I gave him a piece of my memory. Except I couldn't remember which one. Ceres watched pain twist my expression, and her voice softened. "What did you lose?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The ledger answered for me, ink burning across the cover, even without being opened. A summer memory. A woman's voice. Love. A name he cannot speak. Mara, pale and trembling, clutched her satchel. "You traded memory for life." Orange leaned against my leg, steady and warm, warm with summer's gold. The Queen of Summer swallowed hard. To give part of the soul to another is an ancient rite, forbidden, lost. Only wardens of the first age could... "What are you becoming?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The thing's missing. The battle had slowed, but not ended. Ceres pulled me aside. I told her everything, I said, recounting the dead road, the autumn queen, the shattered shard, Orange dying, and the first forest. When I reached the part where I gave up a memory, my voice failed again, like a book with a missing page. Ceres touched my cheek. "Hey, it's all right. We'll fill it in together." She always had more courage than she admitted, but something in her expression changed when she saw the way Orange leaned into me, not as follower or guardian, but as equal, as pack. "You're not the same, Ezra," she whispered, "and I don't think you ever will be again." I didn't argue. I had become an empty space filled with power. The Crown's invitation. We had barely begun to regroup when the drums started. Slow, deep, far across the burning orchards. Funeral drums. The Queen of Autumn sat on a throne of deadwood carried by hollowed giants. She had returned to speak. She smiled like someone greeting a lover on a balcony. "Ezra," she called, her voice carrying impossibly far. "You broke the shard. You killed part of the first forest, and you gave your soul to a wolf." She tilted her head. "I'm proud of you." Orange snarled. Autumn held up one finger. Every hollow priest stopped moving. She spoke into the unnerving silence. "You are breaking yourself piece by piece. The more you give away, the more you forget. Your power grows. Your self shrinks." She stood from the throne, dress of dying leaves rustling in the heat. "Stop fighting. Come to me. I will not hollow you. I will save you." Cirrus spat. "You tortured half the world." Autumn's eyes narrowed. "I saved mine. That is all any queen can do." Her gaze locked on mine again. "Ezra, you broke the winter shard. You cannot survive the next. Let me guide you." My pulse pounded, because something inside me, the part missing, wanted to believe her, to walk toward her. Cirrus felt it. She grabbed my arm hard. "Don't listen. That's the missing memory talking." Autumn smiled faintly. "Is it? Or is it what you would have chosen, if you remembered who you were?" The hollowed army began to retreat slowly, leaving Veridel in ruins. Autumn's voice echoed. "The next shard is spring. If you follow me, no more will fall." The ledger's pages fluttered in fear. "The crown does not want your body. It wants your will." Ceres let go of my arm only when she was sure I wouldn't move. Mara whispered, "What now?" Orange lifted his head toward the south, toward spring, and the ledger wrote, "The next shard is green. The next loss is hope. Run." I looked at the burning world, the wounded queen, and the hollowed space in my skull. The hollow crown no longer wanted to capture me. It wanted me to choose it. "Pack your things," I said. "We move at dawn." Chapter 25. The Last Green Court. Spring judges not with fairness, but with honesty. The Ledger. Fragment 26. We crossed into spring beneath a sky that tasted like rain. Not water, life. Every breath was green. Sap, pollen, flowers pushing up through cracked earth. The trees here weren't twisted by winter or burned by fire. They swayed with heavy blossoms, petals falling like soft snow. It looked like paradise. It felt like a trap. Cirrus kept a white-knuckled grip on her spear. Mara coughed. The spring air carried more untamed magic than lungs from winter or summer liked. Orange padded ahead, fur catching silver and gold light. The dual blessings of the fallen courts, making him an imposing, beautiful force. The deeper we walked, the louder life became. Insects humming like tiny bells, vines scratching stone, birds singing melodies too perfect to be natural. Spring wasn't gentle. It was alive, aggressively. By the time we reached the outer gates, we were surrounded. Spring warriors stepped from the trees, cloaks of leaves, bows drawn, arrows tipped with glowing green sap. Their eyes held restless energy, joy, and suspicion braided together. The Blossom Council. The commander of the gate lifted a hand. "State your names and purpose." Ceres stepped forward. "Ceres Gale, of Summer, sworn blade of Veridel. This is the Ward Knight. We seek audience with the Blossom Court." A ripple of fear passed through the soldiers when they looked at me. They didn't bow. They didn't lower their weapons. Spring had heard about the memory cost, about the winter shard, and about the fire. Orange growled low. "The council will decide if you live long enough to speak," the commander said, voice tight. Spring's capital wasn't a city. It was a garden fortress, spiralling towers grown from massive vines, platforms of living wood, and bridges braided from flowers. The court chamber was an arena of petals and thorns. At the centre sat 7 rulers. Spring was governed by a council, not a single monarch. They studied me with varying degrees of suspicion, awe, and fear. A woman of bark-brown skin and rose-red dreadlocks leaned forward. Ezra Haynes, Ward Knight of Winter, Protector of Summer, Breaker of Shard. Her voice was like honey mixed with nettles. "Do you know what you've become?" "No," I said honestly. "Good," said a man of vine-tattooed skin. "Then you can still be judged." Another councillor, a pale elf with grass-green eyes, spoke the words that made the air go still. "Truth, Phage." Mara gasped. Ceres's hand dropped to her belt. "What does that mean?" I asked. The elf's gaze sharpened. "Spring magic reveals truth. Yours eats it. You break lies. You break illusions. You break memory itself." My stomach churned. That wasn't power. It was a weapon. And a mirror of my trauma. "We don't trust weapons," said the rose-haired woman, "especially ones pointed at us. Tell us why Spring should risk its life for a warden who brings the dead road wherever he walks." "The test of truth?" I took a breath. "Because the hollow crown will destroy you. Winter is burning. Summer is dying. The crown isn't interested in taking land. It wants obedience. There won't be courts anymore. Just silence." A shiver ran through the vines beneath our feet. The Councillor of Blossoms whispered, "Then prove it." Her fingers brushed a petal. The world smelled like spring rain. And truth magic hit me like a hammer. It didn't feel like pain. It felt like being peeled, layer by layer. 1,000 vines of light coiled around my chest, digging for lies. The rose-haired councillor's eyes glowed green. "What do you fear most?" A flash of my sister's smile, blurring, fading, like a photograph left in the sun. Losing myself. "What do you want?" My voice almost broke. "To protect what's left." The councillor leaned forward. "Who do you serve?" This time, the answer wasn't painful. Not the seed. Not the courts. Not the crowns. I serve the living. The vines snapped and fell harmlessly away. The chamber inhaled as one. "He didn't lie," a councillor whispered. "He can't. Because something in me, some fractured root where memory used to sit, wouldn't let me." "All right, Warden. You pass." The next sacrifice. Relief washed through the room. For 2 heartbeats. Then the doors slammed open. A summer soldier staggered in, bleeding, eyes wide with horror. He fell to his knees. "They're here! The dead road, they—" He choked. His skin tore. Roots exploded from his mouth. A hollowed spore bomb. Orange lunged, dragging me backward as vines erupted from the corpse. Spring guards rushed to contain the infection, but they were too late. The corpse's chest split open. A voice echoed out, soft, calm, and poisonous. Autumn's voice. "Hello, Spring." The vines in the corpse formed a twisting sigil in the air. "You have 7 councillors. You will have 6 by dawn." Every councillor froze, and the message ended with, "Choose a sacrifice, or we will choose for you." The body collapsed into black petals. The spring court shook. The ledger burned hot enough to scorch my hand. The next shattering will not be a shard. It will be a court. Ceres whispered, "Spring isn't a battlefield. It's a trap." The rose-haired councillor looked at me with wild, terrified eyes. "Warden, will you protect us?" Every person in the chamber stared. I answered without thinking. "Yes." The ledger wrote, "The forest believes you. Now prove it." Chapter 26. The Night of Thorns. Fear does not silence truth. It screams it. The Ledger, Fragment 27. Spring locked its gates before nightfall. The gates aren't iron or wood, they're roots. Massive, thick vines rose from the earth around the capital, twisting together into walls of living bark that sealed the court from the outside world. The gates closed with a rumble like a heartbeat slamming shut. We were inside with thousands of civilians, soldiers, healers, and one hollow agent. The ultimatum was clear. One councillor had to fall by dawn. The Blossom Council met again in a chamber of woven petals. Their voices were sharp, brittle, fear-splintered logic. "They won't stop at one," the elf councillor said. "If a hollowed kills one of us, the spores will take another. And another, until spring belongs to her." The rose-haired councillor glared at me. "You swore you'd protect us, Ward Knight. How will you keep a traitor from killing us in our sleep?" Oren's paced, hackles raised. "Wolves don't like walls. They trust the open sky." Ceres whispered, "Spring runs on politics. They will turn on each other before dawn." She was right. Councillors already eyed one another like drawn knives. A scream tore through the chamber. We bolted through the halls of Livingwood toward the source. We found the youngest councillor, a boy of 17, slumped over a scrying bowl. His throat was unharmed. His mind was not. He stared at the ceiling, eyes hollow, empty. His mouth moved silently, forming one broken word: forgive. Ceres pressed fingers to his neck. Alive, but hollowed from within. No killer, no wound, no blood. Someone in Spring's court had spoken to him and hollowed his soul with nothing but a whisper. The Autumn Queen didn't need assassins. She needed fear. The council turned on each other instantly. Accusations flew. Vines writhed on the floor. Ceres shouted, "Enough!" No one listened. "Command and consequences. I spoke. Stop!" The word hit the room like a wave. Not loud, not angry. Final. Every vine in the court froze. Every soldier straightened. Even the Blossom Council fell silent. I felt it then. The change. The truth phage wasn't just breaking lies. It was command. "Sit," I said. And the council sat. Not because they chose to, because the roots in the floor obeyed me. Ceres stared at me in shock. So did I. Orange moved closer, pressing his side against my leg. The ledger pulsed warm in my palm. The forest listens to you more than it should. "We need to find the hollow agent," Mara said. "Someone here talked to him." Orange sniffed at the boy's body, ears flat. Then he turned to a guard standing near the doorway. A woman of spring, bright-eyed, armored in green bark. Orange growled, low, warning, certain. The guard stepped backward. Too fast, too frightened. I saw it. A twitch beneath her jaw, a subtle bulge of vine under the skin. "Hold her," I said quietly. The roots obeyed instantly, lashing up and binding her arms and legs. She shrieked, her voice shifting into two tones, human and something beneath. Her skin tore, her body split from collarbone to navel. A spore creature burst out, a mass of black vines with eyes like sap-filled pearls. Orange leaped, jaws crushing the creature's head. Black rot splattered the roots. The council stared in horror. "There's your traitor," Ceres said. "No," Orange growled, and turned his head toward the far corner of the room, where a second councillor stood trembling, a woman with golden braids. She backed into the wall. "Please, I didn't know. She said she could save my son. She... Roots ripped from her palms, twisting into weapons. Ceres lunged. I commanded. "Stop." The vines froze in midair. The hollowed councillor dropped to her knees, screaming, or trying to. The vines in her mouth choked every sound. She wasn't infected with spores. She was bound to the crown willingly. I knelt in front of her. Her eyes were terrified. "She has my son," she sobbed. "If I didn't obey, she was going to hollow him. I had no choice." "I'm sorry," the woman sobbed, and then her voice changed, became deeper, older, cruel, Autumn's voice. "Hello again, Ezra." The possessed woman lifted her head. Spring thinks it can judge truth, but truth is the easiest thing to kill. She extended an arm, vines sprouting along her veins. Choose. Kill her, or let her kill another. The Autumn Queen's favorite game. The ledger burned hot enough to sting. If you kill her, you protect Spring. If you save her, the crown takes someone else. I refused to give her a sacrifice. I grabbed the woman's face gently. "I'm sorry for what you've been forced to do. But you are not hers. Do you hear me? You don't belong to her." I whispered the same word I gave Oren's. "Live." Light roared through my hand. Gold, silver, and white. The vines inside her shredded. The hollow magic tore free from her lungs and chest, ripping out of her like black smoke. She collapsed in my arms, sobbing, breathing free for the first time in months. The black cloud coiled in the center of the chamber. It plunged toward the nearest living thing, Ceres. Oren's leapt into its path. The cloud struck him. His entire body jerked as if lightning seized him. His fur went white, eyes wild. His legs buckled. Autumn speaking through the black. Kill him, or he joins me. I didn't break a shard. I broke myself. I grabbed the cloud with both hands. It burned, it tore, it screamed, and I pulled it into me. The council chamber vanished into white. Roots convulsed, petals burned. The ledger's voice shattered. "Stop! Stop! Warden, you cannot hold this." But I held it, because if I didn't, Oren's died. Ceres died. Spring died. The black cloud dissolved into my skin. My veins burned black-green. My eyes rolled back. And I heard Autumn's voice one last time. "Welcome home." Then everything went dark. Chapter 27. Seed of Rot. Corruption does not begin with death. It begins with purpose. The Ledger. Fragment 28. I woke to the sound of wind chimes. Not made of metal, made of petals. The air smelled like crushed mint and wet soil. Sunlight filtered through leaves woven into a roof overhead. Spring's healers surrounded my bed, dressed in moss-green wraps. Their hands glowed with warm green magic, but their faces were tense, worried. Ceres sat beside me, armor-dented, eyes red-rimmed. She looked like she hadn't slept since the hollowed attack. Mara slept in a chair, scrolls scattered around her feet. Oren's lay across my legs, heavy, warm, breathing slow. His fur glowed pale gold and silver, as if both fallen quartz lived in his ribs. When I shifted, he woke instantly, head snapping up, growling at the healers. Ceres leaned forward. "Easy, Ezra. You're safe. Healers say you've been unconscious for 2 days." 2 days. My voice was rough. Spring, the council, the hollowed dash quote. "They're alive," she said. "Because of you." Her eyes flickered, pride and fear in the same breath. "But there's a problem." She held up her hand. Her fingers trembled. "Look." She turned my wrist. Black veins crawled beneath my skin, faint, shadowy branches that pulsed slowly, like a heart that didn't belong to me. A cold sweat crawled up my spine. "No." The nearest healer stepped back, eyes wide. "We cannot purge it. The corruption has rooted too deeply. If we try to cut it out, it will kill him." Mara jerked awake, panicked. "Is he still Ezra?" A voice answered from the doorway. One of the Blossom counselors, the elf with vine tattoos. "For now." Ceres shot to her feet. "For now? He saved you, all of you." The elf's gaze was steady. He also absorbed hollow essence. That means 2 things. He cannot be hollowed. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. And he can hear them. The healers gasped. Mara covered her mouth. Ceres whispered, "Ezra? Is that true?" I opened my mouth to answer, and a voice that wasn't mine whispered in the back of my skull. Hello, Ezra. I flinched so hard I nearly fell off the bed. Orange snarled, teeth bared at nothing. The elf folded his arms. The crown can speak to you now, through the corruption, through the shard you broke, through the memory you sacrificed. What did she say? Her voice slithered through my mind again, soft as dead leaves. Do they know, Ezra? Do they know what you want? I forced the voice away. She wants me to choose, I said. She doesn't want to hollow me. She wants me to agree, willingly. If I accept her, she gets everything she needs without killing a single warden. The room went still. Ceres's jaw tightened. She's manipulating you. Orange nudged my hand, grounding me. The ledger wrote across its cover, even without being opened. You are still you, but part of you is not. A healer whispered, he should be isolated. Ceres wheeled on her. He saved your lives. He broke the hollowed in spring. He contains the infection so you don't have to burn your own forests, and you want to lock him in a cage? The councillor spoke again. We fear his influence. Any warden touched by the crown risks becoming its voice. I lowered my hand. The corruption pulsed again. Harder. Not yet, it whispered. I forced the voice away with every ounce of will I had. Let me prove it. The elf raised an eyebrow. How? Words aren't enough, I said. Let me fight. Let me make this corruption something that protects instead of destroys. The ledger wrote, the forest does not fear poison if the warden holds it. The elf nodded slowly. Very well. You may stay, but under one condition. You walk through the blooming mirror. Every healer in the room gasped. Mara stood so fast, her chair slammed backward. That's suicide. Ceres swore. The mirror shows a person every truth about themselves, even the ones that break them. The elf's voice was calm. If you carry hollow rot, the mirror will show it. If you serve the forest, the mirror will show that too. We will accept whichever truth remains standing after. Ceres finished, voice hard. If he goes in there and the corruption is stronger than his mind, he won't come out human. I didn't blink. Fine. We don't win this war by hiding from the truth. The ledger's ink bled dark across the cover. Be careful, some truths should not be found. But it didn't say stop. Orange pressed his forehead against mine, eyes glowing gold. He was scared. So was I. But we walked toward the mirror anyway. Chapter 28. The Blooming Mirror. Truth is not what you believe. Truth is what remains when belief has cracked. The Ledger. Fragment 29. Spring led us at dusk. Not by torchlight. Their magic made its own glow. Petals drifted on invisible wind, suspended around us like stars trapped in slow fall. Orange walked pressed against my leg the whole way, never once looking anywhere else. He remembered the dead road. He wasn't letting me go anywhere alone again. The mirror stood in a clearing encircled by white trees whose trunks curled upward like ivory snakes. The mirror itself wasn't glass. It was a pool of living water, perfectly still, perfectly reflective, and perfectly wrong. When the wind blew, the water didn't ripple. When a leaf fell in, it passed through without a sound. Only depth. Only truth. The counsellor with the rose-coloured locks spoke. Step into the mirror. It will show you everything you are and everything you hide. Ceres gripped my shoulder. We go in together. But the council shook his head. Only the warden enters. The mirror reflects the self alone. Orange growled, a sound deep enough to shake bird nests from branches. I spoke. He stays with me. The counsellor frowned. That is forbidden. If the mirror is about truth, I said, meeting his gaze, and Orange carries part of my soul, then he's part of the truth. The counsellor hesitated, then conceded. Very well. Step. I stepped into the water. And Orange jumped in beside me, inside the mirror. There was no splash, no cold, no wet, just falling. Then ground, grass under my hands. Soft, familiar. I stood in a suburban park, the one near my childhood home, the swing set with chipped red paint. Normal, impossible. Orange landed beside me, paused silent. A girl sat on the swings, 17, smiling. My sister. Except I couldn't remember her name, not the shape of it, just the idea of her. The terrible blank space where my most precious memory used to be. "I know you," I said, chest tight. Why can't I remember?" She smiled sadly. "You gave my name away, to save someone you loved." Orange pressed against my leg. The gold in his eyes glimmered. A memory he carried that I no longer could. My sister looked at me. "You think that makes you weak, but it makes you what the courts have forgotten." "What did I forget?" She reached out and tapped my chest. "That you weren't chosen. You weren't destined. You weren't born to this." Her eyes softened. "You were taken." The park froze. The sky went grey. Leaves curled black. I whispered, "Taken by who?" A woman stepped out from behind the slide. The Autumn Queen. Not masked, not crowned, just human. Barefoot on dead leaves, hair braided in gold and russet, eyes tired, tragic. My sister's voice trembled. "You knew her. Before." The Queen walked closer. Her voice was small, human. "We were children together. You were 5, I was 6. You weren't born here, Ezra. But the forest chose you when you were young. You came through once, and you belonged." She placed a hand over her heart. "You were my friend." My knees hit the ground. If she was telling the truth, then everything I believed about being lost, about being a stranger, changed. Orange stepped between us, growling. The Queen looked only at me. "You're angry at me for saving my court. But I loved mine with the same fire you love your sister. I begged winter. I begged summer. They watched us die. So I did the only thing left. I am not your monster. I am your mirror." My sister faded like dust. The park dissolved. The Autumn Queen held out her hand, trembling. "Come with me. Walk willingly. I will cure the corruption. I will return your memories. I will bring your sister to you." The final choice. I closed my eyes, all the voices echoing. Cirrus, Oran's, the ledger. The Queen's voice, soft and breaking. "You are the only one I never wanted to hurt." I opened my eyes and answered, "No." Her expression shattered. "Why?" "Because every time I've lost something, memory, magic, a piece of myself, I did it to save someone I love. You lost everything and decided the world should match." Orange pressed his shoulder into mine. The Queen stepped back, her face cold as frost. "Then remember this truth." The sky split, and for the first time I saw what she hid. Her court, the Autumn Court, was not dead. It was imprisoned. Millions of people, frozen inside hollowed trees, forced to watch their bodies move without them. Trapped. Begging. The mirror forced every face into my mind like knives. My sister's voice whispered, terrified. "This is what happens when you keep choosing mercy." Orange howled and shoved his head under my hand to keep me grounded. The Autumn Queen vanished into shadow, leaving one final truth. "This is your future if you fail." The world convulsed, and the mirror shattered. Back in the garden, I crashed back into my body, gasping. Cirrus caught me, shaking me. Orange lay across me, refusing to let anyone touch me. I met the council's gaze. The Autumn Court isn't gone. Their bodies are hollowed, but their souls are still alive, trapped, chained, screaming. Cirrus whispered, "Can they be saved?" I looked at the corruption under my skin, pulsing slower now, like something exhausted. "I don't know." Mara spoke next, voice small. "What did the mirror say about you?" I answered truthfully. It said I haven't broken yet. The counselor nodded. Then spring stands with you. The mirror had shown one more truth, a truth worse than the Autumn Queen or the Hollowed or the war. A truth I didn't speak aloud. I wasn't chosen. I was taken, and part of me wants to go back. Orange pressed his forehead to my arm, as if he could feel the thought forming. Ceres frowned, studying me with sharp, worried eyes. Ezra, what aren't you saying? The ledger's ink bled across its cover, frantic. Do not speak this truth, not yet. So I lied. Nothing. The corruption pulsed, once, painfully, punishing the lie. And the chapter closed on silence. Chapter 29. War beneath the bloom. When the last root breaks, the forest remembers its teeth. The ledger, final fragment. Spring woke to screaming birds, not songbirds, carrion crows with eyes like polished obsidian. Their cores cut through dawn, throwing shadows over the blossom court. Ceres jerked awake with dagger in hand. Orange was already on his feet, gold and silver fur bristled, teeth bare. The council rushed into the central clearing as petals began falling in sheets, shaken loose by distant tremors. The ground was shaking because something massive was coming. The blossom gates groaned. Vines curled and recoiled in fear. And then we heard it. Drums. The same rhythm as summer. Funeral drums. The hollowed did not come quietly anymore. They came to claim. I stepped forward, with the cold, internal pulse of hollow corruption beating alongside my own heart. The ledger opened itself, the pages flipping as if caught in a storm. Warden. The crown knows you saw the truth. She does not need spring to fall. She needs you to break. Too late to retreat, too late to hide. I faced the front line and spoke, my voice steady despite the corruption's cold hum. Archers. Ready? The crown's gambit. Vines parted. The hollowed army emerged. Not beasts this time, not trees. People. Thousands of autumn civilians. Children, elders, lovers, farmers, soldiers, marched hollow-eyed and silent, their bodies puppeted by vines that wrapped their bones like marionette strings. Spring soldiers shook. Ceres whispered, "She's using her own court as shields." No one could fire, not without hitting families. The Autumn Queen stepped through her army, calm as a bride, bone mask smooth and expressionless. Warden, step forward. I stepped, Orange at my side. You don't have to do this, I said. I am trying to save my court. You're killing them. No, she said. I am preserving them. Their souls are alive, locked, waiting. If I win, I can return them. If I lose. She gestured at the hollowed bodies. They die screaming. She reached out a hand. Come, I will cure your corruption. I will return your sister's name, your memory, your life. You will not die a stranger to yourself. My pulse hammered. The missing memory screamed at me to believe her. Orange nudged my leg, not pushing, not warning, asking me to choose. If I stepped forward, this war ended today. Except the mirror had shown the truth beneath her offer. She wanted a weapon she couldn't control. I shook my head. No. The mask tilted slightly. Why? Because every time I've lost something, memory, magic, a piece of myself, I did it to save someone I love. You lost everything and decided the world should match. A long silence. Then she lifted one hand. Very well. The army of Hollowed moved. Thousands of bodies, marching, sprinting, crawling across the ground. The Warden's command. Spring panicked. Fire! I shouted. Arrows of living sap ignited mid-flight, green flame arcing into the Hollowed. Bodies burst into flowers as they fell, horrific and beautiful. Orange charged, ripping corruption into shreds. Ceres formed a line of summer soldiers behind me, blades alight with gold flame. Then the Autumn Queen lifted her hand, and every hollowed body stopped moving at once. Silence. She whispered a single word. Kneel. Every autumn civilian collapsed to their knees, vines tightening around their throats, choking them. Spring screamed. The Queen wasn't threatening me. She was showing me. If I didn't surrender, she would kill her own court. My heart broke. I stepped forward. Orange leapt in front of me, blocking my path, teeth bared. I whispered, "Let me through." He refused. The ledger burned in my chest. Do not give yourself. There is another way. I looked at the thousands of hollowed bodies around us, connected, one mind, one root. And I realized the truth. The corruption in my veins gave me access to their root. I reached into the corruption, not to destroy, not to kill, but to command. My voice rang across the battlefield, cold with winter's authority, warm with summer's life, and resonant with the rot I carried. Stop. Every vine froze. Release their throats. The vines loosened. Stand. Thousands of hollowed bodies rose in unison. The Autumn Queen staggered. True fear crossed her face. "How?" she whispered. I stepped forward, eyes burning gold, silver, and black. "You hollowed them. But you never understood what it meant. They aren't puppets. They're roots." The hollowed army slowly turned. Not toward spring, toward the Autumn Queen. She stumbled backward. No, you can't." The hollowed moved with perfect silence to surround her. Her bone mask cracked down the center. She dropped to her knees. I whispered, "No, you don't get to die easy." I placed my hand on her forehead and spoke the only sentence that mattered. "Let go." The roots inside her spine snapped. The hollowed vines shredded, falling away like dead petals. Her body collapsed into my arms, human, fragile, sobbing. The hollowed civilians fell to the ground, breath returning, vines retreating from their bones. I didn't kill them. I freed them. The battlefield went silent. Mara whispered, voice breaking, "Ezra, what are you?" The ledger wrote the answer for everyone to see. Warden. Not just of forests, of roots, of death, of life. I knelt and lifted the Autumn Queen to her feet. Her eyes were bloodshot, terrified, human. "It's over," I said softly. She shook her head. "No, you don't understand." Her voice trembled. I was never the crown. A cold wind tore across the battlefield. Every vine, dead or living, turned toward the horizon. Ceres whispered, "If she's not the crown." The Autumn Queen raised a shaking hand and pointed north, toward winter. Her voice broke. "The crown is coming."